And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 889, the absolute degeneracy of modern writing. What a fantastic all-capital title we got there. This is from the YouTuber The Second Story, and it came out just 2 weeks ago, has over 125,000 views. Good for her from a almost 40K sub channel. And this looks like a 95 upvote ratio, so good for her. People must be a good video. We've never heard of her, never covered her. And just so you know, we do have Aiden Paladin on, so how's it going, Aiden?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is purely by choice, and I think Whisp, you recommended this, and so long as we have a differing of opinions, not just all just jumping on one person or all for or against something, I like to cover topics like that. So it's on writing. Everyone's got their own subjective tastes. I'm not a fan of most of women's authors' books, just because I just don't get into it. But I do like romance. I do like rom-com. So I don't know what exactly the topics are going to be. Maybe there'll be fantasy, rom-com. I don't know. But hopefully not Harlequin romance. Those are not really for me. But yeah,
I fear it has something to do with the entire walls of bookshelves that now line the big stores that are here labeled New Adult, which has nothing to do with new adults, because it's just read by a very one-gendered type of audience.
Interesting. Well, even in that case, more power to those people, because the writers have found an audience. They're giving them what they want. And according to the title, this could be a bad thing. I don't know. To me, it's like live and let live. Go ahead. Enjoy your wonderfully adult fiction. Live in your fantasy and then go back to your real lives, and don't jump a dragon in traffic or whatever. So stuff like that is great.
It's also interesting you brought up Harlequin romance, because those have been around. It is called the absolute degeneracy of modern writing, but those Harlequin romance books have been around for what, like 70
at least
years or something like that. At least, yeah. So and my grandmother used to read. They weren't Harlequin romance, but they were on a similar. Hers were the ones she got were always like a romance for Christmas or something like that, so like that kind of thing. But I've never read one of them either.
Well,
I'm sure even those were smutty in their own way. So I don't know how new of a trend this is.
The Harlequin romance was an actual publisher who made the smutty books, and then that became its own genre. Then other people thought, hey, they're making money, we can do that. As with stuff that your grandmother would read, that is pretty much every week on the Women's Network on TV.
Yep.
And there's all kinds of books like that, but they're usually a mix of genres. They're not just, the love triangle. It's usually, it's a woman going back to her hometown, not married, finds a guy that she might have grew up with or is a friend of the family, and there's a Christmas miracle. Some angel comes down and guides them to their path in life. So it's
basic women's wish fulfillment stuff, which is fine. But I mean, that's what you expect from it. And usually what that comes in along with is a very blank slate main character, typically speaking, so that any woman reading it can insert herself into the MC position. Just in my limited experience because I also am not into this stuff. That's why I'm curious about what she has to say about it.
All right. Well, I think that's enough setup for everyone. 40 minutes. This is going to take some time. Knowing Whisp and myself, we like to interject and pontificate and sip our tea in between each other's talk.
I have a feeling Aiden is good at that.
Oh boy, this will take some time. All right, let's get going, guys.
When I started, I'd been noticing a broad decline in literature in particular, a decline that began a lot longer ago than most people think. And my aim has always been to help, insofar as I am able, to remind writers of the true fundamentals of storytelling.
I'm just realizing, like, her setup, she has memento mori, she's got the candles, she's got a bookshelf. Her keyboard is just, I don't know, some weird, goofy way. Yeah, she's all right.
Got Otto the Skull, yeah.
But the electrical candles.
Hopefully elevate their craft, controlled by the fleeting tastes of book talk or bookstagram or whatever. However, I've been noticing that there are a lot more aspects that have been contributing to the decline of literature besides just a lack of understanding regarding the fundamentals. Today, I would like to focus on one of the most glaring issues plaguing modern publishing.
That's about you.
Certainly not me.
No, I meant the host.
Oh, is that a video? Is that her own video, or is that like she just likes smut? I don't know. Maybe.
No, I think it's just it looks like a sticker. It looks like a sticker that you get on Temu. I guarantee that is a sticker. I've seen some interesting stickers and shirts like that on Temu. I guarantee you can buy that sticker.
can we make a T-shirt out of that? And she'll probably wear it everywhere she goes. Not the best thing to have in public, but you know, it's harmless. It's just saying what she likes reading.
Yeah.
Although I would doubt that it is just a joke, because I saw some things in her library there behind her, and there's a big green book called the Nibelungenlied, the actual Nibelungen saga. So
yeah,
big props to her.
All right.
Oh no. I think we covered some of those articles at some point.
Something you hear a lot is that women have come to dominate the literary world more and more. We'll look closer at those numbers later, but for now I think we can all agree that female writers have achieved fame and success comparable to a lot of their male predecessors and contemporaries. But the female writing, which is most often presented as proof of this, is things like this, despite the fact that there have always existed things like this. I'm personally of the opinion that the literary world is so rife with corruption and ideologies that any observation along...
Whoa. How do we jump to corruption and ideologies from Mary Shelley and other authors that are female in the past? That was a...
Oh, no. Those were the good ones.
Yeah, because she showed some of the... Yaros's book and a lot of the other like modern smut, and then compared and contrasted to, you know, Bronte and Mary Shelley, etc. And I think the question that she's asking, and we're getting that ideology stuff, is why is it that women as authors now are sort of autonomically associated with smut, which seems to be ideological or something. I don't know if ideological is the right word for it, but it certainly seems to be a trend of, if you think of female authors, oftentimes you're thinking their writing is smut for women.
Okay.
Because Twilight and what's it called? 50 Shades, etc.
Well, since they're more hooked on emotion or more prone to it, and the ideology in question that's plaguing us all and all our media operates on that vector mostly, if not alone, then it's just natural consequence that it would also affect the smut literature.
That's fine, but I wouldn't describe that as being corrupt or ideologically fueled. It's just...
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but let's see where she goes with that, because I'm not... Yeah, I think you need to maybe evidence that a little bit, but we'll see.
Okay.
Meaningless. Generally, or women who dominate the literary world, it's ideologies and popular trends in social politics, whatever those might be at a given time. Historically, a lot, not all, but a lot of the most widely celebrated female writers, especially within the 20th and 21st centuries, have been at the bleeding edge of social and political progressivism. To my mind, this makes it less about being a woman and more about being an acolyte of a particular ideology. Like I said, though, not always, just most of the time. Nevertheless, it is somewhat true that right now women somewhat dominate the publishing industry. First of all, some housekeeping. Apparently, I will be punished in some mysterious way if I use a certain word in my videos. This word has 4 letters, starts with a P, ends with an N, and there's also an O and an R in there too. So for the course of this video, I'll have to refer to it differently. I'm going to use adult entertainment or adult videos or explicit videos. I don't know. None of these words quite have the same meaning, but you and I both know what we're talking about here, so let's just make do. All right, to start with,
And that's why it's called new adult instead of what it should be on the shelf. Which is right on the ground floor, right next to the big entry door.
Oh, that's the other thing about it too. That is true. Is that the women's sort of like casual reading, whatever it is, the stuff, adult literature, is always it is like light reading because it's just there to pick up. It's always right in the front too, front and center. Come in and get your smut and get out. At least every time I've been to a bookstore in the last 20 years.
I mean, the thing is, this type of stuff in the past here in Germany was mainly about the Mountain Doctor. That's the main genre that we had here. There's a couple variants on that, but my favorite bookstore here had also close to the entrance, and it's one of these tiny, beautiful antiquariates where you have a million books and they don't even know anymore what they have in there. But there's this throne of 4,000 little booklets of, I don't know how many pages these have, like 80, 120 or something. They're not very thick. But they're all from this one publisher, and they're all these Mountain Doctor novels of where, oh, you're this girl in the south of Germany in some beautiful place in the mountains, and then there's this new doctor from the village over, and you know how it goes.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Specific.
I have no idea. Yeah, I can't relate to that one bit.
I need not elaborate, but that's the German version of exactly this stuff that you described earlier. And the thing is, you have several grannies that come in, drop 20 or 30 of these onto that pile, look through it, and buy 20 to 30 new ones. Next week they'll come back. And I bring these 20, 30 ones back into the antiquariat, and then they'll dig for the 20 ones that they haven't read yet. And they're all the same story.
That describes my aunt about 20 years ago at Barnes & Noble, and she was the biggest purchaser of books for like 2 years straight. And when I visited her basement was just bookshelves, just 4 bookshelves of just the same style of genre. And eventually she figured out how to go to a library, but her husband just let her go crazy. I'm like, Uncle Rick, you gotta.
They don't cost much, I don't think. I mean, I haven't. I do still buy physical books, but the books I buy are weird political tomes. So I don't know how much like a regular book, I guess, really costs. That's not true. I still buy some fiction. But I think they're also really cheap. They used to be at like $7 in the US. Probably with inflation, they're probably 10, 12 now. But I think that's part of it, is that it's disposable sort of entertainment.
Oh yeah, but with these old ones, these old novels, and that's the genre these grannies grew up with. They're just in the range of a couple cents.
And, the old ones, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and effectively it is the same content-wise, just by the mechanics, not by the genre itself, but by the mechanics of how it works. It's the exact same as what we see when the ideologues inject their politics into our media, our video games, our movies, and what I then call fetish writing. Because that's what they do. They put their formula over the very thing, and it has always the same beats, the same keys, the same tags basically that have to be present. And while that is in some genre of quote unquote adult entertainment, no problem. That's what it's there for. That's the corner it should belong in.
Yeah. I think
But the problem happens when it is pushed into the standard media.
Using any collection of plot devices or tropes that can work in more than one genre or subgenres is very difficult. So if they can pull that off, and have a dramatic structure or some payoff, great. I mean, you're doing double work, but it's selling, and it's going to be very entertaining and have a series of hooks that the average reader and someone who likes the genre will be like, wow, look at all this ROM and action and adventure and all these other genres are coming together. That's hard to do. So if they can do that, that means they know how to write. So that's good. Yeah.
But the great negative example of last year was Dragon Age Veilguard.
Oh, we don't need to talk about that. We're good.
I'm just naming the beast.
Okay, all right, we're good. Let's keep going.
Let's just push aside any conversation about about what I like or don't like to read. What I am offering you in this video is not my opinion or my reading preference, it is facts.
Ooh.
And the first thing we need to establish is that all this so-called romance fiction and most, if not all, of the current women's literature out there is not women's literature. It's... As a woman, the most common defense I hear for romance fiction, especially the romance fiction that is so prevalent today, is that it is literature for women. Whenever anyone tries to express some concern about these genres or the nature of their content, that person is immediately condemned for being anti-woman or anti-women's literature. The idea being that these types of books are not just popular among women, but that they define womanhood, and to be opposed to them in any way is to be opposed to women.
I'm getting a real bad, like she had a bad experience talking to friends or people online that disagree with her, and she's like...
I mean, I've had similar experiences. I mean, it is anecdotal. But yeah, like I've not done it so much myself, but in particular, I had a friend who had an experience like this that she relayed to me in detail, which was that when we all went away to college, she joined a literature club at her college, and it was all women. It was a women's literature club, and all they read was this kind of smut. And then when she would, and my friend being at the time a big, fan and prolific reader of classic literature, and then she also liked manga a lot and stuff too. She kind of fought back against it a little bit, and they had that kind of response to her, again from what she relayed to me, and I have seen in some of it myself, which is that if you are going against the girlies, you're not a girl's girl, right? There's a big like women's solidarity thing of why are you being critical? You're not one of the girls. In a way that I don't think men's friend groups really have to the same degree, is that type of conformity. It's just a thing that women's friend groups tend to do,
Oh, so the sisterhood does exist, but only for degeneracy.
Well, the sisterhood exists, but you have to go along with everything the sisters think. It's the communal decision on something, and if you go against it, even if it's not been, it almost never is officially stated in any way. It's just all implied.
Where's the brain bug that controls the collective, that controls the swarm? Where's the overmind?
I don't know where I don't know where the overmind is. It's just a tendency, because women are tend to be higher in wanting to get along, right, and form consensus. So that's what you get when you have women's groups like that very often.
That's interesting. I actually have a few stories about the adult visual novel media for males, because they're mostly males.
Oh yeah,
if not all males, and it's very similar to fandom. Whereas, I can relate to BioWare back in the day. Like everything BioWare does is brilliant. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have it for decades and decades. Except the 5 guys in the corner that bought the game and are complaining every time the story sucks, the dialogue sucks, the combat sucks, the overarching plot sucks, the choices suck. Like, you guys don't know what you're doing. Like, oh, get away from us. And then we have to make our own groups and talk together and form YouTube channels, and here we are. So, stuff like that is normal in every fandom.
Yes.
And that's the crazy fanboys who will always excuse the thing. It's
the same type of attitude where the writer can do no wrong, the company the publisher could do no wrong, everything's amazing. Oh, it's going to be, every plot hole is going to be solved in the next chapter. Don't worry. It's like, yeah, I've heard that.
However,
before.
I think that there's a big difference between how fandoms normally operate. And again, this is from my limited experience with this, which is more of like, oh, you are betraying the company or the creator or the writer or whomever, depending on the type of fandom it is. Whereas the thing she's talking about, and again that I've witnessed, is you're betraying your gender, your sex, by not being one of the girlies and not going along and wanting to read the smut with us, or enjoying the smut, or criticizing it for being smut or whatever, that you're not being a girl's girl.
Yeah.
And that is a bit different from betraying your fandom by being critical of something.
It's as if you have to walk on eggshells to criticize the thing they love. It's like, hey, I know where you're coming from, and I agree that this is awesome and yada yada, but let's use a critical eye for about 2 seconds and talk about why it's not the best thing in the world, and they can't do that. So when you
you have to be emotionally extorted into compliance.
You have to talk on their level, right? Yeah. It's very difficult to use critical analysis in book circles when it's just, this is amazing and everything is great, and you can't think properly because you just can't. They won't listen to you. So that's normal, and I don't think it matters if it's the genre or the group or female or male. there's always going to be the fanboys who just go crazy, and that's it.
Such as myself, who are critical of the internalized misogyny. The reality about all of this is that it isn't a question of woman versus anti-woman or even woman versus man. The issue here is probably one of the oldest ones in existence. It's the normalization of
which is there's one big thing of irony in that, because while you're accused of internalized misogyny for not liking it, the contents of many of these books contain grape fantasy.
It's look, the polling on that in terms of the survey data is pretty consistent. It's women's most common sexual fetish or whatever, is the R fantasy. And most of these books, if they don't actively have it in it, it plays with similar sorts of things. So yeah, it's a bizarre contradiction. But her saying that you get accused again. It's like what I was bringing up too of being internalized misogyny, of having internalized misogyny. It's that very same thing. How do you make it? You can't circle the square on it because the books that you may be criticizing they might have a feminist perspective on why they don't like it.
Of explicit adult entertainment. It's pretty irrelevant because the number one reason anyone has ever tried to normalize this kind of, explicit content is money. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. First of all, we need to establish this fact very, very clearly. Women's literature is not, just some randomly horny trend in the book industry. In that sense, outside of a handful of odd entries here and there, women's literature doesn't exist. Women haven't taken over the literary world. A 4-letter word starting with P has taken over the literary
I just did a search because I was curious where Suzanne Collins was on the list of women's who were in the top 10 or top 100 of this year. So there's, it's not even almost all done in August of this year. Rebecca Yarros, she's specifically one of those people she's talking about. But we have Taylor Jenkins Reid for Atmosphere. That's at 2.3 million. We have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, a psych thriller. That's 2 million. The Safekeep, Yale Vanderwooden, literary fiction. That's 2 million. So we have plenty of other female authors, not just in America or North America, that are selling books that aren't of the same genre. But I'm assuming she's talking about romance.
Probably talking about abundance too, just in the sheer number of it. And so that when you look at the bestsellers, sure, but if you look at the totality of women authors, I think you're going to find just per book sold a lot of that stuff too.
Like in North America.
An overabundance of leaning towards, even with that though, some of the genres you were saying, those could end up being some of the more smutty books, even though it says psychological thriller or something, It's
possible, but I mean, in North America, it's okay, Michelle Obama's book came out, it's got 1.6 million. There's all kinds of authors that no one knows anything about unless you're within the genres.
Right.
And they know their audience, so they're not going to suddenly start having sex in chapter 17 because it's the time for it. It's just, that's what they do. Just don't write it, and they've been making money so far. But with Rebecca Yarros, then that's what she's known for. So obviously there's going to be
right, yeah.
3% of the book is going to have some smut in it. You're like, okay, great. I'm okay with that though.
Barnes & Noble and every other major and independent bookseller, especially all those new romance bookshops, have now just become another kind of adult entertainment store. And
they're specifically just for that?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by that, no. Again, there's so much of it, just the quantity of these books. And what it comes out of, I don't know, I'm sure she'll get into this because this is my hypothesis here, is that this is an evolution of fan fiction. Because fan fiction circles are overwhelmingly female. That's been a very popular female hobby for a very long time. I've been doing a video on Star Trek I'm wrapping up, and I was talking about how some of the earliest of what we think of as modern fan fiction, it wasn't Star Trek, it was Sherlock Holmes. But also Star Trek, of course, was a major source of early gay erotic fan fiction, and it was mostly women writing it, and still is, 60 years later.
Well, you see the issue in the big bookstore here, where even in the English section, back in the day, there were 2 shelves for English books, and one was, well, fiction, and you had it full of Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and then a couple of the classics, and the other one was more serious literature. And now it is, 5, 6 shelves, and 5 of them are this stuff. So while there are more foreign language books, the actual worthwhile ones have halved. Absolutely insane.
All right, let's read a super chat. We'll get on going. Here's Extenzer for the 5. Thank you, sir. Every day we're reminded of grim news. Women. Shalom Maiden, will women have...
Yeah, gentlemen, it is with great sadness to inform you that women.
That's the meme. Will women have freedom in the new monarchy? And I don't know what emoticon that is. Is that a Triforce? I don't know what's going
on. Probably not. But, this is yet to be seen.
Okay.
What do you mean by freedom?
Exton, that's for you to respond in the chat. Anyway, let's keep going.
A good thing. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This is. You are actually incorrect. For a man, average man, I don't know, reading an explicit depiction of a sex act might not really get the job done. Men typically tend to gravitate towards seeing the act on the screen in one form or another. Women have always, on average, preferred to read it, even if some do end up hooked on the filmed version. The female mind has pretty much the same reaction, generally speaking, to the written version. In fact, written erotic content tends to have even more of an impact on the minds of women than filmed erotic content. Why? Because men and women engage with media in fundamentally different ways. When it comes to adult entertainment, your simple, straightforward 2 people banging video isn't really going to do much of anything for a woman, generally speaking. There have been numerous studies done regarding female sexuality or the differences between male and female arousal, and generally across the board, they'll tell you that women require what is sometimes called mental mapping to be sexually aroused. That is, there needs to be more story and more opportunity for her to feel empathy. That's just how it is for a woman.
This is the same. This is the same for males. If you're talking about literary fiction, I spoke specifically about adult visual novels. It's the same thing. You cannot just have sexual depictions because you know how to use Poser 3D or Daz 3D and you're really good at lighting. You need to build...
The story needed.
It needs a narrative. And this is what we talk about on these forums, on these boards. Like, why is this story better? Why is this creator? Because we talk about mangakas doing everything. It's the same ideas with these creators and AVNs. They learn 3D modeling, lighting, animation. They do everything from Blender, or they use as cheap as possible. And they're like, oh, how do I write character? Let me figure that out. And if they know what they're doing, it's not some perverted whatever, because God knows there's lots of, you think women's literature is bad. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Never mind the males. So, but when they actually write a story, it's not the sex that's the most important. It's the tragedy. It's the comedy. It's the basic writing techniques that you need to have. And that makes a good story. That makes everything better, not just the sexual depictions, but the characterization, the affiliation with the characters, the plots. That is what we care about. And unfortunately, it's not the strong suit of these people because they're animators, they're modelers, they're not writers. But sometimes you get the mixed bag of creators that can pull that off, and that's very rare. That's why those 1 or 2 are really up there. In terms of, I think the most Patreon, like the top 20 Patreons, one of them is an adult visual novel creator.
I think more what she's talking about specifically, real quick, sorry, is it's not that women don't necessarily enjoy visual depictions, but it does appear to be that for women, the visual depictions are totally unnecessary, oftentimes. And so this written stuff it explicitly appeals to women, just the written, no visuals needed, or in fact, no visuals preferred. And that even relates to like how women versus men react to media content in general. For example, Dolph Zillman, a lot of his research, he studied both porn and horror. He's considered the father of media psychology. And what he found is that, for example, with horror films, and particularly in the 80s and 70s when he's studying this, and there's that big rise in, this hypersexualized slasher film. He found that both men and women enjoyed the film more when they watched it with a partner who acted in a way that comported with how they expected the opposite sex to react to it. So when the man was stoic in response to a jump scare, the women enjoyed the film more. And when the woman acted afraid, the men enjoyed the film more, for example. So there's all these like different weird sexual dynamics that go into how people enjoy media and under what context and what is part of that. And in that case, co-viewing, specifically, it's like a sexual or pseudo-sexual social ritual that's being performed. So again, like there's just the way that men and women consume media, what they get out of it, and what makes them enjoy it is just a little bit different.
My issue here is would rather, and that relates in part to what you explained, is I would take issue with the word empathy here because they don't like the visuals. If you strip that away, you have a greater realm of projection that can be done.
Yes. And that's my hypothesis. I've not seen any research that's proven that definitively. Well, you can't, however much you can prove anything in social science. But my guess is that it's because of how you also see the female characters in a lot of this smut for women is written. They're written as blank slates. And in much of men's fiction as well, but they're meant to be a vessel for the reader to, or viewer, whatever, to, insert themselves into, pun intended, I suppose. So it's like meant to just be like a sort of blank character. And particularly I found that to be the case in women's erotic literature. And in the best case, just look at again, the two biggest series examples, Twilight and 50 Shades, is that the main character is intentionally meant to be personality-less so that the woman reading it can interject any of her own quirks or how she looks even onto the character. It's vague enough that anyone can be, I forget the name of the woman in 50 Shades, but
which is exactly the point.
Yes, exactly. I can't even remember her name. I remember Christian Grey, but I've never read those books, but I remember at least his name.
Yeah, and all the rest about this topic is explained by Mr. Garrison in South Park.
Oh, really? I would sort of chalk this up to when men look at women, it's sort of like to get your foot in the door. Oh, this is interesting. I'm curious because she's attractive visually.
Right.
And then you actually have to get to know her. It's the same with the visual novel. The format is the novel. It's the story. So there's lots of novels out there, sort of AVNs have been going on for years and years, and people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars pumping these things out every 6 months or whatever the timeline is, that the artwork sucks. It's kind of like the first going of One Punch Man. It looks like someone was drawing on a napkin for about 5 years until someone noticed this guy made 1,000 comics that look like crap, but the storytelling and the characters are awesome. And then he finally learned how to draw and made some good artwork. And the rest of the people went, hey, wow, we could make that into we could put that in shonen. We can do all kinds of great stuff. So it's kind of just get your foot in the door for the men. Whereas for the women, it's like, well, what's the fun thing I like? Oh, it's the same genre. Let me pick that up. And they might even enjoy visual novels if it's the opposite way around, that their foot in the door is storytelling and drama. I don't know.
I think it definitely is still storytelling. I mean, I've played a couple of, well, they're mostly memes, but I played, what was the pigeon dating sim? It was actually pretty good, though.
Oh my god.
Really?
I even got a plushie from it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they made plushies. And I got one of the pigeon plushies from it. The ghost pigeon. Yeah, he was my favorite. He was kawaii.
Yes, Hatoful Boyfriend.
Hatoful Boyfriend, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, there's a genre for everyone. Okay.
For women in all aspects of their lives, media. With written explicit content as opposed to your typical material found on the hub, it's a lot easier for the woman to imagine herself.
What's the hub? Sorry? Does anyone know?
P-Hub?
Pornhub? Is that maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, what is the hub? Oh, yeah, okay.
We are so innocent.
Oh my.
This is what you do when you have a psych major that studied literature. You're like, what the fuck is the hub?
The Citadel.
Yeah.
On the scene. In addition, as I said, women require an emotional element to their erotic content that is almost impossible in the simple filmed scenes that can so easily do it for men.
No, I would rather say they're just sloppy because you can make them, but that takes effort. And since we now know that some of these P creators do care due to the costumes for the Marvel parodies, they might be able to pull even that off if they wanted to.
Oh, they could.
Because you can make tasteful scenes. And the thing is, this pisses me off the most, I would say, about Hollywood, is that they cram these intercourse scenes into every big movie and every mediocre movie as well, and they're not good. They're just there. They're taking up space. There's no chemistry there. There's no artistic vision.
Well, it's like films made by committee. The movie's got an R rating, so we have to put a sex scene in it.
Even when they don't have an R rating, like look at Matrix even has one, and that is it's not great. It's there, and there's a lot of movies with way worse, and these scenes aren't necessary.
Well, actually, the research on that too is that women in particular like films much more when they do have a romance plot, even if and maybe even explicitly a sexual element to them, more so than men appear to. From the data I've seen on that.
Oh, the romance plot is fine. I'm not taking issue with that.
That part, the ubiquity of adding romance elements and maybe even highly sexualized elements to films, really like modern blockbusters, that's there for the women as much as it is for the men.
Just tease the scene, leave it leave it to the audience to imagine. And because I think the only one where I thought, oh, that's actually effort put in, and there's somebody who knew what he was doing with the camera, with the light, with the movement, with the actors, and that was in Alexander.
Well,
that's 2004? That was a really good scene.
I like how you mentioned the I don't know, Hollywood porn directors, that they care more about the material than the actual big studios. Like we learned about Kevin Feige probably hasn't read some of these comics back in the day, and we found out that was true. I found out today, in fact, he doesn't like X-Men 97 that came out because it were the memes that were making fun of the X-Men. And the guy who was part of that learned that the producers never actually read the comics. They paid some, I don't know, sub-producer or gaffer or something like that to read the comics for them, and then they would make a document that would outline the key points of the storyline so that the producer would know what to make. And you're like, wait a second, you're telling me the producer's so busy?
A dream job.
Yeah. Read this comic. Read the comic book.
You pay me to read comics,
and then make the movie in a format that I can understand. And you're like, so this assistant is making the entire creative panels for the movie that the producer has to then make. Like,
we had this disdain already manifest in other things where they had deliberately hired people who hadn't read the material and had no interest in it. Halo was an example of that.
Oh, and jeez.
So that's a standard thing, and there's with the X-Men thing, there is the possibility that Feige is also annoyed that thing got some positive feedback, so he might just be jealous. And
right.
There was one more point.
Well, because you mentioned those porn guys or whatever in adult films in Hollywood, there's plenty of mangakas who did. They started off doing doujin, or they made their own porn. Manga.
Almost entirely ubiquitous across mangaka is some sort. And usually they will publish doujin under pseudonyms, as to practice, and because even for really like doujin houses where you have a lot of people working on those, then you need like people to fix up the line work, to finish panels, because you've got several people working on them, depending on the size of the studio, and that's the way a ton of mangaka get their start.
Exactly. I remember
working on doujins.
The one I was going to mention was a guy called Izutoshi, something like that, and he did a comic called Slut Girl. and I don't know how long that went on. But he ended up getting noticed, and he ended up making his own one called Aiki, which was this martial art. This went on for like a decade at least. This crazy martial art comic, and I saw the art. I was like, this art looks really familiar, because I remember reading this thing back in high school. And at least we're talking like another 10-year distance from his porn stuff, and Aiki is really crazy. Like, obviously, it's over the top. It's manga. It's all these crazy action scenes. So that's just how that works. So if we can do that, I'm not saying we have to, but if Hollywood could pull that off, these people who actually care, and this is why I don't really care for genres so much. I care for what the actual quality of the work is. Can they pull off a narrative? Can they do it within 95% of the genre, and then they could slip in the 5%. I don't care if it's smut. I don't care if it's comedy. I don't care if it's romance. If I'm there and I'm invested and you're within the genre and I'm getting my expectations hit and you are amazing and you're doing everything you should, that 5%, you can do whatever you like. You can enjoy. You could have it was all a dream at the end. I don't care. Well, that would piss me off. But still, everything was great, and 5%, do whatever you like. I'm okay with that.
If Hollywood was truly only interested in making money, Hollywood would be interested in giving jobs to talent, because talent produces quality.
That's right.
But what we see in practice is that Hollywood is driven by ego and ideology, and that trumps even making money. That's why they burn money through pushing the absolute anti-product that is propaganda. They don't care that things tank as long as they can push that. And that is what is still so incomprehensible to so many people. That these giant things, these giant companies, BlackRock being one of them, that they dump millions, billions, maybe trillions on pushing this crap, burning all of that money, with no care that it is burned. All just in the hopes that somehow the brainwashing sticks and we start to like this nonsense.
Yeah, that's been made explicitly clear over the last 10 years or so, that the profit margins don't actually matter when it comes to selling an ideology or selling beliefs or selling, propaganda. Yeah, sure.
And that is what should tell us that things like Hollywood or BlackRock aren't capitalists. They are something else. And that's another topic. But I remembered one other thing that works exactly like the thing you said about you pay one guy to read the comic to you because you're not interested in the comics. That was Starship Troopers when Paul Verhoeven made this movie. He didn't read the book.
No.
Yeah, right.
He had it summarized to him.
Yep.
Anyway, but he made a great movie regardless. Anyway, it does happen.
It wasn't what he intended.
Yeah.
Typically. Watching Mrs. Smith bang the mailman while her husband is at work is plenty for most men, but a woman will want to know the whole story. She'll want the sexual tension that builds up between Mrs. Smith and the mailman over several encounters, the dangerous possibility that her husband might come home any minute, the explicit fact that the mailman chose her over all of the other housewives on the street, and so on and so on. A woman would also prefer some kind of story to bind it all together. That's just how women are.
So I and all the Japanese manga readers are women.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because we all want the story. We all want the damn story.
Yeah, but let's be clear about just the sheer proportion of it. If you go to what most men consume as pornography is the stuff you find on the hub, right? And it is just sex scenes. There's no story. And I think she probably is not familiar. It's the waifu gacha. But she's probably not familiar with that whole other subgenre of like VNs and things like that. And that makes sense why she wouldn't be, though, to be fair, because that is a subsection of the market. The average guy, just by numbers, and this is pure statistics, goes to the hub and it's just a video of people, doing the deed, right? Like that's all it is.
That's what all the waifu gacha games are for. And while to a very limited degree that exists the other way around too for the sexes, the the audience is much smaller. Just as we had, right now, as far as I can tell, in South Korea, the K-pop boy bands are much bigger in proportion and in revenue to the girl K-pop bands. Is that right?
I think so, but I don't know for sure. I know that they get huge. What was that band? That one K-pop boy band that was like their fans were scary for a while. I can't remember their name anymore. They were everywhere there for maybe a year or two.
Wasn't that a movie where they turned into demons?
I don't know about that, but I can't even remember the name of that band. But yeah, but that's also not new. I mean, you go back to the Beatles, and that was international. BTS, that was it. Yeah. Go back all the way to the Beatles. I mean, like there were women fainting allegedly over seeing.
How much is that? How much is that fainting?
Guys.
How much is that fainting fake and deliberate?
That's the question. That's the question, is how much of it was fake. And I would imagine a good deal of it, the Beatles mania thing, I imagine some of that is, again, it's like, oh, but all the girlies are doing it, so we're sort of doing a thing now.
Yeah.
That may have been unspoken.
This is when people started calling people stans, and because of the K-pop thing.
Right.
Because there were stans, then there were anti-fans. There was something called sassings, or something that they're uber female fans that they were so aggressive they would commit acts of violence or destroying property or whatever the heck they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, no, this was, there's so many girls even that we covered over the years that they were into K-pop. I don't know if they were part of these, because this does not sound like a North American phenomenon. It sounds like very specific to South Korea. So, I don't know. It's, the people that went to those, what was that one very famous Beatles? It was in a Coliseum it was in some sort of 60s football stadium thing. And the Beatles could not hear themselves play because the cheering was so, and they were just goofing around, hitting the keyboard. And it didn't matter because they wouldn't stop cheering. So it was just hysteria the entire time. So.
And we're supposed to allow that into Parliament?
Wait, the women or the Beatles?
Either.
I don't know what to say. What is happening in Germany? Anyway.
Scenes into a novel-length story, it's going video on the hub hits a guy. As I said, that's just how women are. A lot of men might hear this and be a little dubious, and in fact, I've found that a lot of men, while they might raise their eyebrows a little at just how explicit women's books have become in recent years, they won't really go as far as to categorize them the same way as, the kind of thing you'd find on the hub.
Average guys won't care. They're like, hey, women, you got your thing, we got our thing. God bless. That's about it.
Yeah.
Such classification baffling, but let me. If you look at your average popular romantasy book, those books that have dominated book sales for a few years now, and which are among the worst offenders when it comes to wildly explicit content, the explicit scenes coincide with the story to some degree. Now, the authors of these stories will tell you that these sex scenes are there for narrative purposes. They serve either plot development or character development. I don't think that's necessarily true, but let's go with it. Keep in mind.
Well, I don't know, maybe it is true for the first reading, but any subsequent reread that I have seen women do, and I have, especially with the 50 Shades thing, at certain parties, there will be one of the girls will have the book with her, and she will read it in big quotation marks, and she will read it exactly the way that Mr. Garrison described it in, I think it was season 20, 21, when he became an author for exactly these types of books.
Really?
Yes, it's a beautiful scene. Maybe somebody can find it. It's probably isolated on YouTube if it allows that.
We used to do this when I was in high school. We would go to the Barnes & Noble, and we would do, with my girlfriends, we would do dramatic reading, and my gay friend, of course. Of course. And we would do dramatic readings of the back covers of women's smut. Because it was the funniest shit. I mean, it wasn't for erotic purposes, to be fair, but I can totally imagine this happening. And I will never forget one. I think Wisp, I don't know if you saw it. I read it on Broken Crown once. It was the back cover. It was called Truly Madly Viking. And the plot is that the Vikings ship is that he's sailing around, as Vikings do, and his ship is attacked by, and I quote, Randy She-Whale, which launches him into the future where he meets a woman on the beach and the romance ensues. So you understand, this is the funniest shit I've ever seen. Yeah. When I'm 16, this is the funniest shit you can find at Barnes & Noble.
This is... So, one, yes, and the rereading, at least the rereading of these things, will be flip through 50 pages until you get to the scene. Read it, flip forward another 30 pages to the next scene, and so on. But and that's all they then do.
I don't think that's how women typically... Maybe if they're reading it with their friends like that for fun. But
no, that's the rereading.
Okay, yeah. Just skip to the good parts, right?
Well, I will say in the AVN world, there's some really critical guys who like their porn a certain way, I guess. And they can tell when the sex scenes or whatever the path you're on, because AVNs have multiple paths, there's all these characters and plots and whatever. And they can tell that, oh, this guy is using the same setup or the same plot or the same reasoning or characterization as they use in Chapter 2. This is crap. This is not how relationships work. It has to go up and down and round and round. It has to flow. There has to be something to it. And they would go into detail why this scene or why this chapter or why this character doesn't work, because they treat not the porn as porn. They treat it as a story, because that's part of the story. That's maybe the focus at times, but it has to be, hey, if you're with someone, it's not crazy bang against the wall sex all the time. It's not, do this to me again. It has to be different. It has to be something unique. It has to be something familiar, and both characters have to be aware of that and what they're doing, or else it's just a bunch of dolls. So this is one of the arguments of these scenarios, and this is what makes a good writer to another. So maybe the author, specifically, we're talking about the Onyx Storm by Rebecca Taros, because she's the one she's referencing here. She must have found a format that works, and if she's still selling, that means that format's not static. It can't just be Bing, insert sex scene at page 85 and then rom-com later at 103. No, it's this character has an arc, and the arc just happens to involve sex, and the sex has its own arc as well. Mm-hmm. That's the idea I'm trying to explain. It's not just great visualization and characterization. This has its own. It's a subplot unto the main plot, whatever the hell that is. So, and that is something you could pick apart very quickly. You just might not have thought about it because you're a horny male and you're like, hey, I like these AVNs, And then you think about it for about 2 seconds after second viewing, because again, there's all these paths. You want to try another path. And you're like, hey, wait a second. This is a clone of Chapter 2. So.
Yeah, and if you are literarily inclined, however you say that in English, you will pick up on these things. Thankfully, to most people, they are not that, and they can't just gobble this stuff down. But if you are a connoisseur, you need your steak properly made.
Yeah,
and we've had here's another parallel to Hollywood, to film. You've probably seen these few times where Red Letter Media noticed that there are various movies made in Hollywood that are to the microsecond cut exactly the same way, with exactly the same types of scenes in between.
You're talking about Resident Evil.
Where they watch them in parallel.
Yeah, Resident Evil.
Just have them run, and they fade in at the same time, they fade out at the same time, they have the battle at exactly the same time, the music goes up at the same time. This is formulaic to no end, and that is what makes it slop.
All right, we got a response from Axton Zero. Axton, you could have just messaged me, but that's okay. Thank you, sir, for the 5 again. Freedom includes abortion, prostitution, job opportunity, I guess that goes with prostitution, marriage, divorce, literacy, titles to land, equal pay, and others in the Magna Carta, yes or no?
Oh, no. No. Absolutely not. No. I don't want to get to it. I apologize.
Yeah, let's not bring up the Magna Carta if we don't have to, Jeez.
Well, I guess he's asking as I'm a monarchist, but so no, I don't think so.
Even on equal pay, I could talk to an hour about what various camps in politics mean with that, because it's part of the trick. It's double speak.
Yes, Wes, that was exactly my thought. Is a lot of those things. What do you mean by that? It was like, what did you mean by freedom? Yeah, but what do you mean by equal pay? Right? So this is where you go down the immediate, never-ending politics rabbit hole. Sorry.
Oh boy. Well, I guess that's a whole topic for another video, but yeah. Whew, back to our video.
The Viking.
About how women engage with erotic clay mass, for example. I shouldn't have to tell you who she is and why she's relevant to this conversation. But if you don't know, let me just say that she's the woman responsible for the series of books commonly referred to as... Skilled writers such as Mass understand how the story shape of all aspects of storytelling affects reader engagement. We've talked about this before.
Oh, so she's responsible for Dungeons and Dragons going downhill?
No, I think that I have heard of these books. Only once she put the genre up there. I have heard about this, but I've obviously not read it. It's just more of the supernatural fantasy smut. I mean, that's,
Oh, I thought it was something else. Never mind. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, easy mistake.
No, but it's not gay.
Well, a lot of women's stuff can include that, so who knows?
Well, that's just the thing I want. Oh god, the thing where everybody complains about the isekai Trakkun.
Sorry?
Where no, that's so ham-fisted. It's always the same. That's what these books are.
The what?
Trakkun, who isekais you.
I couldn't hear. I'm sorry. Your German was too strong.
It's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I missed it at first too. But yes, Trakkun.
Yeah, but that's like the ham-fisted storytelling in the currently dominant genre in Japan. But that's all what these books are. Or like 99% of them. They're all exactly the same structure, all exactly the same things happening, just for your moment to get off or something. And
it's very, again, it's women's fantasies versus men's fantasies. In isekai, although a lot of that can have sexual elements, and often does.
Is being run over by a truck a male fantasy?
No, it's more, what I'm saying is that this could happen to you, right? You could be hit by a truck tomorrow while you're walking, on your way to work or school or whatever. That's, again, part of it making the every man or every woman character, and that a lot of this sort of media, both for men and for women, not all of it, but that's kind of like the appeal of the isekai, I think, is it's a regular person just like me thrown into this insane scenario. Yeah,
it's usually as a result of a life not lived, or you are pushing the fair maiden away from the truck and you get hit by the truck, and you've done a heroic deed. You are now going to be gifted into another world with superpowers and all kinds of elf ladies who love you for some reason. So yeah, no, there's all kinds of variations, and that's the great thing about manga.
But I need to know why. I need to know their characters so that I can know why I would like one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And the good ones do that. Or have variations of that, either in a comical sense or in a highly dramatic sense, like Jobless Reincarnation is probably the best example because it's popular. But yeah, no, every time I read a new isekai every week, it's like, oh, yep, okay, they've got the god talk about what they're going to do, and there's a joke about it, or they accidentally overpower the guy. There's all variations on that, and it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek that everyone knows. Yep, you're gonna fight the demon lord, whatever that is. Oh, we know. And then there's the big titty blonde elf that's gonna love you because they will. But there's a backstory behind that. She's a slave. She's a forlorn princess. She's this or that. There's all kinds of versions of that, and it's kind of like getting the right rainbow ice cream flavor at a random ice cream shop. You don't know exactly how much saccharin or how much cherry or how much orange you're going to put in there, but sometimes it works for a certain demographic, and they just latch onto it for some reason, and then everyone stares and goes, "Look at that! That one's good."
I mean, you find things recycled like that because it works. It goes back to Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is that books have to, or any kind of narrative media has to follow a sort of structure. And so you will get a lot of similarities because if it works, it works. And,
and the funny thing is, even if it's bad writing, like the isekai example, there's so many. The one I remember the worst is Noble Reincarnation.
Isekai Cheat Magician.
That's not the worst that I'm trying to get at, but that's, has its own problems.
There's a worse thing than that one?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's so many.
Oh, God.
This one's called Noble Reincarnation. And it is Mary Sue to the max. It is so blatantly Mary Sue. And you sit there and you're like, this can't be serious. And almost every single chapter, it's been going on for years, is you're so great, you're amazing, oh my God, I love you. And it's just everyone that he's now in charge of the Department of Justice, like this 9-year-old kid, really. He's in part of every law in the land because he's so, like, it's just so over the top stupid. So, and people love it, or at least tens of millions of people read it. So
enough.
Yeah, exactly. So
enough to keep it going.
So it doesn't really matter how bad the writing is. It's just the combination of things that people expect that get met, and it's entertaining enough with enough good quality art, with enough good dialogue, and enough good, I was expecting that, there it is. And it's basically your version of Transformers, but for the manga popular modern day, I guess.
It's probably a bit of comfort to that, I would think, in that it's just, you know what to expect. So it's like a comforting blanket or something where you don't have to really necessarily totally intellectually engage with the material because you know the plot beats, you know the sort of general things. A little bit of change can be a positive expectancy violation, but too much change can be a negative expectancy violation where it's like, I don't like that this is deviating too far from what I'm accustomed to. And I think it's all of this quote unquote slop that's why it does appeal to people. That's why it still sells, is because it's like, yes, this is something warm and familiar that I am used to. Similar
to what you were saying about how women just pick up the book and because they got stuff to do and they got a million things going on and they put it down. This is the same idea with manga. It's handheld. It's on the train. You're busy. And, here's the fun, cool power fantasy. And boom, I could put it back in my pocket, go to school, go to work, whatever. So if you just figure out that formula, you're gonna sell. It doesn't mean it's gonna be good, but that's the popcorn blockbuster. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Stories and even their individual components must have a story shape. That is, at least one character trying to achieve a goal with some kind of opposition to that goal, culminating in a mini climax in which the character achieves success or failure, or some unexpected thing happens. That's a story shape. Mass is actually pretty good at using this story shape to create fairly well-paced, if highly formulaic stories that really draw the reader in. I mean, anyone can write smut, but not everyone can sell millions of copies worldwide. Whether or not her stories are good stories, I don't. The point is, she understands how the thing works, but then she applies the same story shape to her sex scene.
Yes. See, this is what I was talking about before. You gotta do the same thing. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's action, adventure, sex, I don't care. Give me a plot. Give me a climax. Give me a plot point. You gotta get past. Great. Revelation.
Every scene needs a dynamic, including that.
Two meanings to the word climax in that sense. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Well, especially that. Yeah. That's a bit on the nose, I think, but yeah, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Of course, I shouldn't have to tell you how sex scenes themselves have a story shape. She has stated in many interviews that she endeavors to make sure her sex is plot relevant. A big way she does that is to have the erotic scenes take place at the come down immediately after a major plot mini climax.
I don't like her use of the words plot relevant to sex, because if we know the function of sex, that means we're going to have a baby every time we have a revelation. You're like, what?
I mean, it often is, though. In again, Twilight is the example, right? So I'm going to go back to it probably a lot. But that's like the whole thing is the first time that Bella and Edward have sex, I think, or it's the first week during their honeymoon, she gets pregnant. And that might be some of the Mormon belief system in that, but that's maybe part of women's perception of this as well, particularly when it's a romance-based. It's that then it's also getting to vicariously not just live out the romance and the sex, but also the family element of the fantasy.
Okay. If she's having like multiple sex scenes, they all function the same way to have children, either, the compatibility between species is so complicated, it takes a lot of time, or there's a lot of miscarriages, or I don't know.
Well, and in Twilight, no, it's it's vampire Jesus also, essentially. Like, very strange. But that's part of that maybe too. Is the and you find that also with women's stuff. A lot of times there will be family elements and more of the domestic stuff that you don't find in more of. But you do find it in some of men's stuff as well, particularly in VNs, etc. Good end,
Yeah, I'm just. It's such a big loaded word plot. You're like, oh, that's tying the sex to the plot is either part of a romance, marriage, comedy, rom-com. That's normal, but it happens once. It wouldn't be like multiple times. I'd be, wow, that's a lot going on in this story. Holy jeez. How old is this girl? She's pumping them out. Jeez, that's a lot of work. Okay.
Well, I guess it's all towards, maybe it's not just like every time they have sex, but at least, again, using Twilight as the example, they have a honeymoon and they have sex a whole lot, like during that week while they're on their honeymoon, and then she immediately is pregnant, and like the pregnancy is accelerated and everything.
My goodness.
So that she goes through it very quickly.
So that it's plot like, convenient.
Right, so it's plot convenient, and they don't have to go through all the icky part. Well, she gets really sick and dies, and that's how she becomes a vampire at the end of Twilight.
Wow.
So yeah, but that's again a very different way of looking at it, than I think men's erotic fiction tends to generally go about that stuff.
Well, it's the main difference seems to be that men's fiction, including the erotic fiction, if it's more elaborate, is more about the self-sacrifice and protection in order to attain the love. So it's a part of giving, and with the female, it's the wanting to be desired part. So you to get something or to take, in that sense, and that is a classic yang and yin dynamic.
I'd have to.
It's certainly a major feature of a lot of men's fantasies to be the harem, series where every girl is inexplicably attracted to this guy who, in many cases, of like classical harem anime.
Oh, sure, but he
like
wants to.
The guy is a loser, actually, or not that impressive of a dude, and yet inexplicably, like Tenchi Muyo is a better example because there's a reason why they all like Tenchi. But in something like Love Hina, and that's again just like a classic example, is why I'm going back to old school stuff or older school stuff. Is a lot of times that's again so that any man can put himself in the main character of Love Hina's shoes. Essentially, he's that blank slate because
it's young adult. We call it harem, but in the actual AVN space, harem is literally a harem. So that's where we have to make the logic leaps, and it's so much of a fetish or a fantasy, and you try to bring it down to reality. It doesn't quite work. So that's where a lot of these novels don't do well. But if it's contemporary and it's just a guy, everyday man with no major plot, slice of life, it can sell to the mind a lot easier because you're not pushing a fetish, but you're putting the fetish in there in a realistic perspective. After you don't just bang the librarian as soon as you meet her. It takes read a few books, get in there, take a few months.
And I mean, and it's totally, again, Twilight, or example, it's the same thing. It's wanting to be desired by you have two hot guys are fighting over you. You have two hot girls who are fighting over you. This is just a common gender, sex regardless fantasies. People want to be desired.
Yeah. I would break the lance for Love-Ina and Tenchi Muyo in this in that part about the harem, in that the main character, still wants to live up to every girl's wishes. He still wants to. He will still do everything he can to please them and to protect them. Not in the simp variant, but in the actual I'm growing up to be a man that they can rely on variant.
Yeah,
and in VNs that's particularly noticeable because you as the player make decisions as to how you react to the girl and what you say to meet what you think she wants a little bit, or what you think will work if she's the girl you're going after.
There's
and
there's so many stupid personality systems they put to block you. Like, oh, you're too much of a nice guy, or you're too selfish. You can't go out with the nice sweet girl. You're too selfish. Like all these silly things that prevent you. And then the writer's like, oh, let me change that so I appease the fans so they can go any path they like, and then they lock it later. It's this whole I want to get more fans, I want to increase my Patreon numbers, and
I would say the best and timeless stories in this we get when both of these stories are told at the same time where they come together. We have
Yeah.
the male story and the female story work in unison.
Yeah, it's tough because writers just think from the male perspective because that's 99% of who's reading.
And when you know as well, you know.
And then the problem is they put these systems in place that block these ideas. Like you can't go with the virginal girl next door because you've been playing as a jackass or whatever. So they don't like that. Or you want to go monogamous or polygamous, and you can only go with one at a time. So there's all these things that we want everyone to have their own experience, and you're like, that's going to take years, that's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars, and planning this intricate web, and most people don't have time to do that. And there's only like one, maybe two out of there that have done the fetish / realistic / telling a suicide subplot. That makes you go, oh my God, this is really tragic. This is really believable. And then you pair that with great visuals, licensed music from musicians you've never heard of. So you can afford the money, or you can afford the music that it could be a cover song. It could be whatever, some version of Auld Lang Syne, and it's beautiful. And like, oh my God, this person's some Gaelic musicians no one's heard of, and you put it in there. So there's lots of elements to making a scene work, even though you know it's coming, and it's almost like you gotta be a multimedia expert or a multimedia manager who can do posing, can do animation, can do music finding. Some don't even have music. Some don't even have sound effects. Some are translating from Russian. So it's a lot of stuff going on for something to be effective, and you really, really got to know your audience. It's so tough to do.
For a good example of what I mentioned, where both of these are told at the same time, I would recommend everybody who still hasn't, and everybody who has, to watch it again, Vampire Hunter: The Bloodlust. Where you have the vampire, you have the girl, and they both do exactly the male and the female thing for each other.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, that's
not D. D is doing that. No, the couple he's chasing.
I was about to say Sailor Moon's got some great character development. Okay, anyway. Almost 9 minutes in.
What are you thinking of me?
Random anime I like that have the thing I like. Okay, let's keep going.
We need to bring some examples, no?
That is very, very niche and specific to your. Okay, you're not incorrect, but I'm just saying.
D isn't niche. It's one of the biggest franchises.
It has two movies.
Yeah, but in the novel area, it is one of the biggest.
Oh,
look up the numbers.
You want to go to that? Oh, okay.
Well, we are talking about literature, aren't we?
I've never actually read the novels. I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
Crazy.
Anyway.
Incorporates the emotional release of the narrative with the sexual release of the erotic scene. She stated that she often tries to make the significant sex scenes, such as that 2 or 3 day sex marathon, occur at the close of each.
Did she? A marathon? Meaning okay, I'm sorry. That's got to be some fantasy bullshit, because I'm like, wait a second, that's not physically possible.
You do.
It is in these books.
You do take a rest once in a while, but there are some physiological tricks with which you can extend performance and continue and just go another round. That we can talk about that later.
That's crazy. Let's not.
Equally significant plot arc. This is ideal for the female brain, which often in
the female brain wants marathon sex. I don't think she knows her physiology very well. I don't think that's going to work.
Well, it's okay. There's no way to say this without going into the specifics of it, but the person reading this might want it to be prolonged because of what they're doing while reading it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For 3, 4, I don't think that's...
No, but the description,
but it's for the reader.
Making it long, it's for the reader, it's not meant to be realistic. Again, it's that accelerated timeline stuff, just like Bella's pregnancy. It's that everything is on this accelerated time scale sort of thing.
No wonder...
Except for the Smexy scene, because then the readeress can retain her edge.
Yes, it's the like female edging, and then it didn't just happen once, it happened 50 times over the course of a couple days, and it's all fantastic, obviously, but I think it's when you're already in that what Zillman, the media psychologist I mentioned, calls a heightened state of arousal, right? So.
And then she fries her brain with so much dopamine that she'll go into a depression next week.
Well, I was thinking more or less the fact that people are not hooking up as much as they used to. If women are having these fantasies of men having these multiple days long of sexual...
It's not real, because women, we don't actually want that either. Like, that's like, again, it's in this fantasy context where everything is on a weird timeline, I think. If you ask real women who know about like what they'd actually like to do that for a week, they'd say, "Oh God, no." But when you're in the moment of it and you're reading it and it's fiction and it's fantasy, then the reality has been suspended.
I hope so. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some women. I don't speak for all the trees, right?
We do have a variety of petroleum products, but I don't think it's going to last that long. Okay, 9 minutes after 10. Here we go.
But from a reader engagement class has doubly hooked her female readers. The story and the extremely explicit content have become inextricably linked, and the explicit aspects have been delivered via the story in precisely the most ideal way necessary to capture the infatuation of the female reader. Another interesting thing to note, if you're not yet sold on the fact that all of this so-called women's lit is little more than, four-letter word starts with P, have a look at how much women's fiction has become subject to categorization norms that you don't...
Okay. Enemies to lovers.
Want to read those?
Fae, fantasy, magic. This is nothing specific to the subgenre. This is all fantasy. This is all normal stuff. Alpha male.
Yeah, there's nothing. I was expecting this to have weird stuff in it too, but no, not really.
Vengeance.
What is this, like Goodreads or something like that? So it probably isn't going to have more explicit.
Yeah,
tags.
I guess you could make your own tags, and people agree with them. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, but see, there's one non-human hero, maybe. I don't know, because a lot of it is the, the fantasy
exhibitionism.
Man.
That's very specific.
There you go.
Sex.
Well, that's also explicitly sexual.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Like the hub or fan fiction, which has become just another form of debauched adult entertainment.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, you see more of what she's talking about in that list.
I found that list quite interesting, because there is the gay stuff was thrice the amount of the lesbian stuff, which was already a giant number.
Well, women like homosexual romance a lot.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. They're the main purchasers of homosexual manga as well. And, well, of the boy love mangas, that's mainly the teenage girls buying them.
Yeah. And I can tell you why, from the limited research there is on it. It's because then there's no woman involved at all. So it particularly for young girls where they don't feel necessarily like confident in their bodies and they've never had sex, and it's all sort of new to them in particular, or they don't know what they're supposed to think and feel, by just having it be two men, none of the like body issues, particularly that teenage girls are going through, is involved in it. So it makes it safe.
Oh, similar as to why men like lesbian porn.
Yeah, probably.
Because you don't have I don't need to look at the male genital. Because,
right. And I think, and particularly all my girlfriends when I was a teenager were into the yaoi stuff. I was not, but I've dug a little bit into the research on it over the years, and that appears to be it, is that it's the women's bodies are not involved, and therefore it's safe. But in the gay romance, there's always or very typically in women's gay romance media, there's still like the very hard-coded top-bottom male and female roles that are represented in it.
Mm-hmm. What I found, is it here? Ah, yes. What I found here super funny is 72,000 gay romance, 23,000 lesbian romance.
Yeah.
Non-binary, 302.
Not a lot comparatively.
It doesn't exist. It's a measurement error. It doesn't exist. It exists so little there's not even anyone writing porn about it.
Yeah, the only thing that from that list I made, top 10, it was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and one of the subgenres was LGBTQ plus romance. And that's a contemporary fiction. So it's not fantasy.
And do be aware that there are more than 10,000 more entries in gay romance than there are male and female heterosexual in this list. So, considerably more.
Every time I go to read some manga on some completely illegal sites that allow me to read manga, the majority of updates are all MM romance stories. So abundant.
And this annoys me so much, because in my youth, I always associated the word romance with romantic things like a nice dinner, a campfire, or something. The Morticia and Gomez. That was romance to me.
Yes.
And then there's these women literature in quotation marks where they talk about, oh, I like romance, and you look inside and it's like, oh, they're just
there is
humping.
plenty of that.
It's just
too.
humping. When women say romance, they mean humping.
Like I said, I think that a lot of this comes out of fan fiction, and I am waiting for her to say that. She kind of alluded to it about it not being new. And again, like the first idea of fan fiction, we can go back and find Sherlock Holmes fan fictions from like the early 1900s that were circulated in little women's groups by letter, right? And then Star Trek becomes big, and that's another explosion in erotica based on an extant series of the Kirk Spock stuff. It was huge. All these writing circles, and women would just send these manuscripts, make copies. At that point, I guess they had Xerox, and they would send just copies of their erotic fan fiction around in zines. But it goes back to the early 1900s, late 1800s actually, I think.
Oh, could this explain the accusations of women having reading addiction?
Maybe. But a lot of that stuff, I think it's again because there's maybe a weird thing about involving yourself because of pregnancy, that women's bodies are more involved in a way that men's aren't, sort of. That's another reason why gay romance is so focused on by women, because then there is no reproductive element to it that can be scary or gross or off-putting to women. But also something that they do like in the family stuff, but then see it's on that accelerated timeline often, or it's all the nasty parts of the pregnancy are brushed over often. So if it is included, and I do think that it's a body issue stuff that and for real reasons, because of what a woman's body goes through.
Oh, yeah.
Why women are more drawn towards homosexual romance in particular, because then it doesn't involve the possibility of pregnancy.
All right.
The hub or fan fiction, which has become just another form of debauched adult entertainment. Sure, yeah, okay, fan fiction that isn't smut does theoretically exist, I guess, but that's like saying there are non-explicit OnlyFans creators. Within those spheres, the common term used for this categorization is a narrative one, or even a literary one. Trope. People talk about tropes all the time. Tropes are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're a common tool for literary analysis. A little reductive, a little ridiculously overutilized, but benign in themselves. But the important factor to note here is this. When it comes to women's arousal, they need far more specific things than men do. So a woman's sexual entertainment taste will always be 1,000 times more specific than a man's. So when a woman seeks out a new book, she'll look for specific cocktails of tropes for that thing she needs.
Yeah,
I think that might be the product of long consumption, just as your taste buds get more refined with whatever your obsession is.
Yeah, it's oversaturation. You want the specific thing that is supposed to be higher and greater than the thing you got, and it's the same with reading any book. You want
so you distill yourself towards further and further to the exact story that you actually want for your personal wish fulfillment. Just like I want that one specific green tea.
I think she's incorrect here in thinking that this is more female coded, or however you say it. I think that men do this absolutely as well. They they all get into niches, so this is a bit of a blind spot there, I think. But yeah,
I said that bit about
maybe it's more easily noticeable.
It's the same thing.
Hungers, or I guess thirsts. A quick perusal of the book recommendation section of the romance books subreddit will destroy any remaining illusions you might have had that these books are about anything other.
Wait, these are mangas, right?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Well, there are mangas just like
Take
this.
a moment
Yeah.
and look at some of these.
I have no
Can you
idea.
honestly say that this attitude towards women's fiction has to do with anything other than sex? I spent a little.
Give me the redhead.
Forget all the fetishes. Just give me the redheads. Everything doesn't matter. I'm looking for specific genetics with a specific phenotype, and that's it. That's all I want. Brilliant.
Time while I was researching this subject, talking to women and reading the accounts of women who were struggling with the addiction to hardcore content. A solid 9.
Okay. We're talking about books in the same way. Is that what she's referring to? So
Most
I
likely.
think so. Yeah.
okay, so it's purely behavioral, or there's something else going on there. I'm not sure. Is it like addiction with drugs, and then I'm reading books and I'm associating the two? What's going on? I want to know exactly what you can't just throw around addiction and say, yeah, people are addicted to books. It's like, really? Porn books or smutty books? I don't think so. That's very, very nuanced. So
Oh
Wait,
no, it's
well,
just like
porn
with,
addiction is definitely a thing.
Oh, no.
That's unquestionable. But
for males, it's different. I get that. But we're talking about women having to spend hours reading books. That is something.
Oh, there's speed reading. There's speed reading smut. Absolutely. Don't worry about that. They read to the specific point. And the writing in fan fiction works exactly the same way. There are fan fiction sites, but there are authors on there who they don't write long stories. They're rather short things. Like it takes you 20 minutes to read, maybe less. But they write that very same story, slightly different, every 2 or 3 days, and have done that for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
They have thousands of stories on their accounts that they have written, and it is always the same thing. And if you check, what new things have come out this week or this month, and you see this author like 50 times, and you're like, can I filter that out somehow, please? Because that is just crap.
Oh, I get that. But when we specifically talk about addictions and we're dealing with behavioral addictions, we've sort of gone through the motions of that back in the 70s and then later in 2015 with the, what was it, the rat park experiment. So if there's no...
Rat Utopia, yes.
I can't, was that Berkeley? I can't remember who did it recently. One of these universities figured it out. But if there's no...
The Rat Utopia experiment was at Berkeley, I believe, yes.
That was in 2015. Okay, good. Because the other one was in Canada. I can't remember. That's a long time
Oh,
ago.
not in 2015. This was first done in the 60s.
Yeah,
thought it was
I
the
only
70s.
remember the black and white. footage.
I'm not sure what you're if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, the Utopia experiment, which is when rats, you give them a environment of where they're allowed to engage in pure pleasure.
Well,
They have no needs for anything that they will not want for anything.
Exactly. The rat park, the first one was water and then water laced with cocaine. And that was one cage. And then they put the control experiment, whereas they gave the other rats to interact with, they gave her exercises to do, and they still tried the other cocaine, but they did not go to it as often, if not at all, because they had other things to do. And there's lots of reasons for that. We're not going to get into that. But that was sort of like, oh, great, we figured it out. This is the lack of opportunity of things to do in your environment, which is purely environmental, could be social, could be, self-esteem. It could be all sorts of internal things. But that is the issue, not the fact that you can randomly find your specific kind of smut or a specific kind of thing at a specific library or bookstore. So that's when she says addiction, my brain goes, wait a second, is this something measurable? Do we have studies?
Oh no, it's just for the dopamine kick. It's not necessarily for the super specific thing, because as your taste or your need gets more refined for the one specific thing that you want, because at some point that was hit. Now you're looking for that again, but you can't just reread the old one because you already know that one. So you keep looking for one that is similar or better.
Okay, so
they're not coming as close.
You're describing a reward concept, whereas you're searching for that book or that story. This is the thing, and then you get it, and that's fine. That I understand, but that has very little to do with the actual content. That's just the person who has found the thing they like, and now they can't. They got to find it again. So
yes, but that it has to do with the content in so far as that. So for writing style has some importance to this quality, but the major part is which tropes are involved and are they played through in the correct beat, in the correct order.
See, that sounds very
that needs to happen
to fetish genre, etc., or subgenre. So
well, that's what this is. That's what
this
grows into.
It is, and it is a certain degree fetish stuff, and that's why you get like the fantasy or vampire or a fairy or whatever, that kind of aspect of it. But the dopaminergic stuff that you brought up, what that finds and why you maybe get women who do read these things immediately skip to the good juicy parts or whatever and then just pick up the next book, is that the dopaminergic response is sensitive to overstimulation. And so if you increasingly activate your dopamine receptors, it becomes more difficult for your body to continue to activate that exact same center of the brain, and it increases the size of it and reduces the ability of the brain to produce dopamine. It becomes legitimately worn out. So you need more and more and more stimulation to be able to squeeze the same amount of dopamine out of your brain.
Right.
So that's just how it ends up going insane like that. That's all.
I'm just trying to remember the other side of the argument, which was if it's not the rat park experiment, then it's the behavioral learning experiment where you're talking about
Skinner.
Classical conditioning, negative reinforcement, Skinner. And so you're avoiding that withdrawal. So it doesn't have to be an actual chemical. It could be whatever behavior you're getting a hit from. And that's the thing, whether it's dopamine, whether it's cortisol, whether it's serotonin, whatever happy neurotransmitter you've got going. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My brain is happily ready to keep going.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've never spoken before, man. It's nice to meet you, by the way. I didn't know you had a background in psych, but I do as well if it's not evident by this point. So
actually, we did speak before, but that was a random Wisp thing.
You have been here before,
Wisp
Aiden.
Was pulled your arm in the middle of a conversation, and we're like, "Ooh, Aiden, what the hi?" Ooh.
Oh my God, yeah, that was forever. Well, it feels like forever ago. I totally forgot about that. Like, apparently, I'm a little bit brain dead. Apparently, too. Maybe I've got too much.
That's fine. I think you fell asleep.
It's
I
really
probably
hot.
did.
It's really hot this summer. We can't remember.
Dude,
much.
it has been actually horribly. It's terribly hot today, at least here.
It actually rained here in Toronto after like 3 months, so we were like, "Oh my God!" So
I totally forgot about that, man. Now I feel like a douche. Sorry.
Anyway, back to this wonderful addiction of women reading books.
Of them started with erotic fiction, or smut, as they often called it, and fan fiction. A few stated that they didn't really ever get into videos, often because videos couldn't feed their precise needs. Several mentioned that they had quit the video content only to fall back on erotic fiction, and had happily arrived at the realization that there was functionally no difference between the two. I read an account from one woman who noted that she preferred written smut because within books and fan fiction she was able to find things that would have been illegal in video form.
Oof.
So that's nice. I learned, too, that there was a worryingly large subset of these women, some as young as 17, whose tastes became so depraved so quickly that they were now suffering from...
I regretfully have to inform you that that is a very conservative number.
Oh, yeah, because they're not going to tell you their real age. I was a late
You just need
bloomer.
to look at the purchases of things in any big bookstore or comic shop, because the way that these books are labeled, especially I think the very books, not the manga, they don't have age rating.
Manga often does if it's actual like yaoi.
Oh yeah,
that has for a long time.
But the
fan fictions though, that's all available online.
These new adult labeled books. I don't think anybody checks for the age of the reader if it's a juvenile girl.
Well, it's just women's fantasy. That's kind of maybe part of the insidious nature of it. It's just this is just a fantasy fiction
And because
story
it looks
for
like
girls.
a book. It just looks
Yeah.
like a book. So, the 13-year-old is buying a book. Oh, how wonderful! She's reading. Yeah, but you don't see that it's porn.
And it's a big difference from how these sort of books used to be marketed, which, again, those Harlequin romance style books. It's a shirtless guy with ripped pecs covered in oil on the cover, and that's that's what those covers look like, essentially, versus these things that are all sort of abstract covers, I'd say, for the most part. It's not clear what sort of book it is, and that might be part of it.
It certainly wasn't a popular genre 20 years ago. It was not fantasy rom. It was just, I guess, what Whisp was referring to as the Doctor on the Mountain or whatever. That sort of idea. The burly guy coming down on his long flowing hair, coming down on a horse or whatever. It's something that is the European fantasy of going away and finding your bliss and then returning. Mm-hmm. But all this fetish stuff, I don't know exactly where it originated from outside of fetish storytelling. So,
I think it's I can't remember what they're all called. All the fan fiction websites, and that with the tags, it makes it very easy. You can find your niche, whatever it is, and often from a very young age. Because my friends are doing this in high school.
Wow.
On fanfiction.net of. This is now oftentimes what we would, and I read some of it too, but I was like a late bloomer on that stuff. So I was more like interested in, hey, this manga I liked got discontinued and never had an ending, and someone's written an ending for it.
Right.
Like there was one I loved. It was a huge, long, like multi-novel length long fan fiction that was a continuation of the end of a girls manga called Hanazakari no Kimi Tachie, or Hanakimi. It's been adapted a ton of times. And it's just a like simple story of girl goes to boys' school dressed as boy, and oh no, hijinks ensue, right? But that one had novel length, just story continuation for the actual manga that I remember really liking as a teenager. And there was sexual stuff in it as well that wasn't in the manga, which was again a shoujo aimed at teen girls.
Interesting. So it was originally designed for. No, it was teen girls for teen girls. Sorry. Yeah.
It was teen girls for teen girls, and then other teen girls would write novel-length continuations of the story, and it was like it was not a hyper-sexualized story. I mean, the whole premise of that one was, again, this girl she thinks this boy in Japan is cute, so she moves to Japan, disguises herself as a boy to go to his school. Right? It's a classic sort of story, right? Yeah. It's not complicated. And then, oh no, he can't find out I'm actually a girl because then I'll get thrown out of school, and it's all that. And there was just like novel length stuff, and my friends and I would read it every week. The author would come out with a new chapter, and what's the new chapter in the Hanakimi fanfic? So which was not, like I said, there were sexual elements, but it wasn't hypersexual. It was just continuing the story that we wanted to keep reading, the romance story that had been discontinued because the manga stopped.
Man, if only these ladies would enjoy their genre, because we've covered so many women or girls that read shonen and they think it's garbage, it's trash, it's redundant, it's whatever. Like, yeah, I know it's tropey and they do things that are stupid, but that's kind of the nature of what men or young boys want. And I don't know how many, we must have done at least a dozen a year where it's all the same. This is garbage, this is trash, this is schlock. It's like, yeah, well, there's stories you like. They've been around for decades, and they fulfill something that you are looking for that you're not getting here. So I don't know what happened that because shonen is popular, anime sucks, or because shonen is big and there's so much of it, it's become fetishistic or some other sexualization term they like to use. It's sad, but they don't understand genre very well. Anyway, that's another story. Okay, almost at 12 minutes. We're going to probably stop in another half an hour just because I'm melting and I need to breathe. This room doesn't have good circulation. But we can continue this another day if you guys aren't busy. I don't know what your schedule is.
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay, because we're just getting started with her. We're sort of like,
sorry.
What is she doing here? What is she talking about? I don't know.
Oh, but it's a super interesting conversation. Yeah. I think we can get to the halfway point.
I hope so, yeah.
Something called CD. I'll let you look that one up yourself.
I don't think we need to.
Several women and teenagers remarked that
Yes.
they wished they had never started reading erotic fiction when they were younger, as they believed it had destroyed them.
Okay, that's getting over the top now. I want to know who these people are. Wow. I can't
Well,
stop.
it's the same. I would believe it's the same as any Kuma guy.
I guess, but it's so it takes a lot to pick up a book. Like, I don't know what these ladies are doing, but it takes some time to get into the mood, get your schedule figured out. Okay, look.
No, smart. You still.
That's it though when it's on fanfiction.net and it's just next fanfic, next fanfic,
Oh,
next
really?
fanfic.
Yeah, smart. You need to understand, really understand. They are not reading it slow, line by line, with the head voice. They are skimming
they're
through
skipping.
it to get to the part. Maybe if they read on the computer, they might even just hit Control F and put in some word that begins with a D or something.
Yeah, or fill in the blanks. I'm sure that happens as the Control F. Where does it get?
They go for the scene they want.
Where does it get steamy, right?
Yeah. And I've described this about other books I've read that I did not expect would actually be just not just the author's poorly disguised fetish, but just 300 or 600 pages of an excuse to write one raunchy scene. And you can tell that it is just that, because the entire book is completely unreadable garbage. And then there's this one scene that's maybe 1.5 pages long, and suddenly the writing quality jumps up onto a cliff, and it becomes flowery, and there are alliterations, and there's like a flow, and the descriptions suddenly become very poised, and after that it's just back to unreadable stuff where you think that this was not even a first draft.
So,
and the reason for that, why that happens, is the fetish of the author has gone through the author's mind 10,000 times before that scene has been written. While the rest of the book, that was gobbled up once.
That's, you know.
It sounds like you're describing derivations. No, that sounds like you're describing derivations of My Immortal, which I don't know if you guys are aware of. It's probably the most famous fanfic.net story out there. It's
work
kind
of art. Yes.
It's so it's like The Room. It's like, we want to try and be the worst thing imaginable on this website. Let's just mirror everything after The Room. We can never achieve The Room, but we're going to get as close as possible based on our writing skills, and that's what happens, or lack thereof.
Nobody wants to believe me what Dune 5 and 6 are. Aiden, you have to help me make a video.
About Dune 5 and 6 being the equivalent of that? Yeah.
Oh god, you don't want the content. I'll show you.
Oof.
You'll love it and hate it.
Their lives. The thing is, just as with people's tastes in hardcore video subgenres, these hungers will intensify over time. The same mechanic is at play as you see in men who have to constantly seek harder and harder film content in order to even be aroused. For that reason, more and more women's fiction has been including very, very dark material, be it disturbing age gaps, torture, abuse, even rape. Women don't start...
Yeah, compared to the other ones, rape is pretty minor.
I'm going to say that's very commonplace.
Yeah, and that's mainly because it displays the capability of domination, which is relevant for displaying confidence, which is what it is really about.
See, I don't mind these various subgenres and fetishes. Whatever you like, that's great. It's the manner upon which you're looking for it and knowing that what you're going to get is not going to be very good. As we said, or Whisp said about the people in Hollywood who are adult film artists, they care actually about the content they do. Some of them do, at least, of course. And that is what we should respect, not because we like the genre or we even like porn of that nature, but because they actually took the effort. They did the homework. They said, I care about the material. I want to make X. It could involve adult content. It could not. Either way, if you go to fanfic.net, you're not going to find very many good things in writing in general.
You can. At least back when I used to, which has been a very long time, I used to read like Bleach fan fictions
Really?
and Inuyasha and stuff. Yeah,
Wow.
when I was 13, so 2003. But they were like story-based ones, and they were not just like pure sex or that kind. First of all, because as I alluded to, I was like a late bloomer. I wasn't interested in sex. So there are a ton, and oftentimes they're very highly rated. But I think maybe it was a different era too. In the early 2000s, in particular, there were a lot more people writing fan fictions that were about continuing the story, or were about, I don't know. I haven't looked at this stuff since I was in my teens, pretty much. But maybe it still is this way. But at least back then it was. But there were the most popular stuff is always going to be the eroge, whatever. Eroge's game, but the erotic stuff. But what you will also find story-based things for people who are interested in the stories, and they will be really popular as well.
I will say that at the time, because I was in college, there was the argument with Shonen with Bleach versus, I think, Naruto or whatever, and there were the two groups or two camps, and with Bleach, the story was never done. It seemed as if the writer just never had anywhere to go aside from developing the theme of friendship is power and everything's about my friends. I got to protect my family, yada yada. Whereas Naruto had an arc and a story and other things going on. So it became, I would imagine, the point of fanfic.net to try and finish Bleach in an appropriate way for the fans, because there were loads of fans of Bleach. And then the writer came back a decade later, and I think they're making Bleach again. I can't remember if they're...
Yeah.
So it is popular. So maybe he woke up and says, I need some more money, and maybe I should actually finish the thing I started. So that makes sense with things that are undone or not finished.
Yeah.
So,
which is what I saw a lot, or even when it was just the author's on hiatus, or not even that the manga's unfinished or something. It's just the author's on hiatus. But there's many cases, I'm sure you're familiar, that manga that just get dropped. It's done. It has no ending, really. And so when I was reading fan fiction many years ago, that was the stuff that I saw a lot of, was continuing stories. But obviously, there's always been a very heavily sexualized component to most fan fiction. But it's not that's all it is. There is just again, so much of what we think of modern fan fiction starts with Star Trek, and a lot of that was, well, it's a limitless sort of universe that's got all these rules, so I'll make up stories. And there's thousands of novels that have been written about Star Trek that are just continuations of the story that people have read.
The sad thing is some authors, I think Peter David was one of them, who did those novellas, and people think that's like science fiction, that's worthwhile. And yes, some of those authors were good, and with the case of Peter David, he was allowed to actually flesh off some of the, I think the Betazoid culture. They let him do that. So
Peter David, Deanne Duane, or two that come immediately to mind. But Diane Duane, I always don't know why I say Deanne, but it's just a name I've known since I was a kid, probably why. People who actually contributed more to like the, because Diane Duane, she focused a lot on the Vulcan history stuff and Romulans as well, but so did Peter David.
Yeah, it's kind of like, this is what people only know of science fiction because of the shows, and they have no idea of like past 40 years that made Star Trek come about from that. And this is what I always talk about, exports from other countries. We talk about Italian, exports. It's like Peroni. It's like, that's a great Italian beer. No, it's the slop that no one else wants, and most people can consume. So that's Star Trek. That's pretty much what you got out of the 60s and 70s, was this stuff that most people can grasp. It's not too complicated. It's not too gory. It's not too sexy. It's just the right level of consummation that you can take into your body, and not to have horror stories or make you think or make you want to contemplate existence, which is why we had science fiction originally, was to make us, what do we do in the future? What would that look like? How would that work? Where do we get our humanity from anymore? And with the novellas, with Star Trek, it was like, wow, this is just a cheap knockoff of something that might have occurred on the TV. And we're talking about TNG at the time, in the 90s. So it was so weird. And I just like, this can't be all we've got with science fiction. Thankfully, we had Harlan Ellison and J. Michael Straczynski and even Gaiman to do other things in the 90s that we did not get, at least in book form. So
yeah. I was thinking about it too. Jonathan Frakes, well, at least attached his name, and so did Shatner. They all attached their names to a ton of books, claiming to have been the authors of it. How realistic that is likely minimal. But that was the whole thing of when Trek was not on the air. It was, well, what's happening? We'll publish books.
Yeah, I do recall actually enjoying the Tech War stuff, but then I reread them and went, "Oh my god, this is crap."
Yeah, that's been about my experience with it as well.
Yeah, you grow up, you're like, "Oh, this is the first time. This is pretty good." You're like, "Wait, Shatner?" No,
yeah,
no, not that Shatner. That's just a pseudonym. You get it? Oh my god.
Yeah.
I was young once. Okay.
Fantasy fiction. That's something that happens over time as they become desensitized to more mainstream content. I don't know how many videos and reviews I've seen by very young teenage girls who say the explicit sex in Sarah J. Maas's books is very mediocre and vanilla.
Really?
That would be because they're already desensitized and crave harder content. Honestly, though, by now I should have convinced you that these books are merely mass-produced hardcore adult entertainment and that their readership consumes them in much the same way one would consume any other form of, four-letter word starts with P, and that the result of that consumption, especially on a large enough scale and on a long enough timeline, is pretty much the same as any other form of hardcore entertainment addiction. So let's move on. Now, let's assume that you can get someone to concede that, yes, this is all, a written form of the same kind of crap you'd find on the hub. At that point, what happens is someone will insist that this is somehow the ethical type of adult entertainment. We'll get to that. Or they'll start trying to argue that this kind of written explicit content has positive effects.
Okay, she clearly does not like adult content. There's something's going on here. She's just like, oh.
Oh, I think she's just overloaded. If you look for good literature, and if you are into good literature, and your bookstore is just crammed to the ceiling with this stuff, you're just fed up at some point. Just as we are fed up with all the propaganda crap ruining our movies and our video games. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing in literature.
I do get the idea. Now, that's an assumption, but it seems to me that she's just kind of like fed up with the amount of it, because it is there's so much of the stuff that's produced. Yeah. So I think it's probably the quantity that's causing her frustration.
Yeah, because look, there's
at all.
On the example of there being the Nibelungenlied in the background. The Edda also has its raunchy scene. And they are, I would say they are more tasteful than the smut today. And I take no issue with those. And they are plot relevant too. But it's not filled to the brim with it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's...
Well, we're humans, so sex is going to play a role in the stories.
Well, I'm just hoping it's more or less something to do with Sturgeon's Law and not she just doesn't like sex at all, because I'm sure she's encountered a good story that has sex in it, and she's like, hey, this is good. I like this because it's realistic or believable or vanilla or whatever. And she's just getting inundated with suggestions and people talking about it, and it's like, I don't want
badly written stuff, and everything is innuendo, and there are certain fetishes are just funny because the authors obsess with the fetishes that obsess over them don't even understand their own fetish.
Maybe
like I think the most box standard example is the usually male authors who obsess over the chesticles of the women. And they don't understand the measurements of bras, how they work, what the numbers mean, what the letters mean, and then describe ever bigger things. And if you know what the numbers and the letters mean, and you read that, you think, dude, that is not what you're describing. That woman doesn't look like the adjectives you're using. If she has those numbers, that's not how it works. Sorry.
Well,
it's hilarious.
Get a nice European girlfriend and ask her about all kinds of questions regarding that, and you'll find all kinds of encyclopedic knowledge you never knew she had. And
but that's just a blatant. Yeah, but look, that's just a blatant example. This is probably true about every fetish out there, and So there's a lot of stuff that just reads completely nonsensical while over the top at the same time. What's that super crazy author who's been read on Amazon a lot?
That's super crazy.
Forgot the name.
I mean, it could be all kinds of people.
The one with the raptors and stuff, the dinosaurs.
Oh, I don't know, but there's
Wow.
tons of stuff like that. People who just write bizarre stuff. Yeah,
Um,
I know that kind of. I think I know what you mean, broadly speaking. I don't know the
Yeah.
specific guy though.
I'm sure somebody's mentioning it in the chat in a sec.
There's tons of people
and-
like the woman writing the book about the Randy She wheel. Like, there's people who get into very bizarre little niches like that. Yeah.
And it's just so cheesy and over the top, nonsensical. You just get fed up with this, and all this romanticy stuff is effectively just that. It's not well written literature. It's not. It doesn't have literary value.
well, regarding this author she's criticizing, who's Moss or Mass, probably. I'm willing to bet that the one who sold over 2 million, what's her name again?
Chuck Tingle.
Rebecca Yaros, 2.7 million this year alone. There's got to be something there. I mean, you can't sell that many to fetishists. It doesn't quite make sense. Something's going on there. So I'm hoping, and plus it's part of a series, so she's not doing just one-offs here and there.
Well, part is also the be the first to the party thing, where your name is first established, so people stick to you over whoever comes after you, even though you might not be the best. You are just passable, but you deliver consistent quality.
I could probably write a consumable piece of fiction, whatever medium, for women, because you just watch the Women's Network. You watch Hallmark stories. You read a few things here and there. You're like, oh,
Just listen to Mr. Garrison's advice.
These patterns are there, and you can optimize the best if you want, or you can come up with your own spin on things, so long as you get the 90% of what they expect there, and you can do whatever you want. So these women obviously know at least some of them know the formula. So I don't see anything wrong with that, and I'm not against bashing obsession with sex as a good or bad thing, but let's put it on a level that she is like, okay, is this acceptable at all? And say, are the authors any good, and why? Is that available in a way that you can criticize properly? Because it seems as if it's very negative to her in general.
I am not that sinister. I think I could write that, but no.
It's not hard. These are contemporary stuff is not hard. Slice of life stuff is very specific to where you are.
Oh no,
in the
writing slice
world.
of life is also there. There's also something to. But no. I mean the new adult content that keeps you hooked, because what you are writing is a drug. You're writing a behavioral drug.
Well, even with very famous slice of life authors like Murakami, like there's that bingo card that's been out for 15, 20 years, and he writes the same story pretty much over and over again. So even if it's just some loner guy in the mountains meets some random lady, and they have escapades, and there's a cat, and there's jazz music involved, and some rich assailant, it's like, whatever, people still like that. And there's a bit of mysticism and a bit of religion, but it's always very straightforward, believable, mundane stuff. And whether it involves porn or a little bit of sex doesn't really, that's part of it. That's part of life. So unless this is a fantasy, unless this is a romp and it's over the top, then great, that's the genre. If that's the case, still, you'd have to accept the genre for being goofy for what it is. So I don't know exactly what her problem is, unless she just doesn't like it, and that's great. But I want to know.
I think it's the oversaturation, but that is a speculation on my part.
I really want to know, because when people come hard on stuff, I'm like, why are you so critical without giving me exact problems outside
I
of
think
saying
we just
individuals?
take into this is a context thing, I believe.
I know,
because in the beginning she listed good women authors from the past.
yeah,
And what women are mainly putting out right now.
but that is
And
different
she,
genres.
being an author herself, Yeah, but that means it implies that there is a lack of good female authors in the West, because this is what the majority that comes out from women, and her being an author herself implies that she also reads a lot, and she probably might try a female author once in a while, especially if the bookshelves in the bookstores are oversaturated with female authors. So you pick one of those books once in a while, and then it's just, again, this.
I know, but this is different than, let's say, Harlan Ellison was criticizing science fiction back in his time because it was all adolescent nonsense when he knew what he was talking about, but he was talking specifically about the genre of science fiction, which has been trivialized, or I don't know what to call exactly at the time, making it popcorn stuff, the lack of quality, the lack of intelligent fans who couldn't read outside of Star Trek or stuff like that. This sounds like she just doesn't like the fact because sex is involved, therefore bad. I'm like, okay, fair. But let's get actual examples, because again, if they are selling in the millions, it's either pop crap or there's more to it, and there could be substance there, and I don't know which is which. Like we'd have to sit down and read one of these Mouse's books, or I guess we can start reading some fan fiction. I mean, that could happen. Just to say we know what we're talking about. But Rebecca Yarros, maybe she's brilliant. If she can do that whole Freytag's pyramid to sex, like great, that should be awesome. I don't mind. Anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Heard all these arguments. I've heard people say books create some kind of sex positive environment for female empowerment. I've heard people say that books like these increase readers' empathy.
So that was the feminist sex positive thing. She's like, nope, don't believe that.
Yeah. Well, if you read it,
As I've said,
she's shown what they actually write in there, and that is, if it's grape, that's not the sex positive thing that the feminists proclaim. That is rather the stuff that they criticize as grape culture.
Yes, but then what do they go and read and spend money on?
Yeah.
Exactly. So how's that positive and empowering? It's just a lie. They're just lying.
Yes, they are. But the reality is that women clearly are into this stuff. So who cares about what the feigned sex positive stuff? Women are demonstrating their revealed preferences via purchasing power, right? This basic capitalism. Their revealed preferences show that they want to purchase these things. They will pay money for it. And the overwhelming theme amongst a bunch of it is, R-word stuff. So
we should...
That's their revealed preference of feminists, non-feminists, females alike.
Which has dismantled the lies that they peddled, and which tells us that we shouldn't listen to their policy demands because they're lies.
Well, there's a big gulf between fiction and reality. The women who read these kinds of, R-word fantasy stuff, there's a vast gulf between that fantasy with a handsome, often rich man. If we look at, what is it? 50 Shades, right? A wealthy, powerful, rich man versus what is usually the case with actual in real life right? There's a big gulf between that. So
yeah, but Aiden, it is
power fantasy stuff in fiction with a handsome rich man is very different from what women are upset about in real life.
Yeah, but it is the exact same women who claim to be upset about these and those things, but then read the opposite.
Right.
That's what I mean.
And it appears totally contradictory. It appears totally contradictory, but it's actually not, because of the men that are depicted in these stories. They are desirable men. And so, it often is the same women harping.
Exactly. But that is why we should not listen to the policy demands of these specific women.
Hard to delineate with like when you go to vote, you have to hand over your Goodreads background.
Wow.
But I agree.
All right.
like this is inherently anti-women. Action romance novels have on the female brain. There are so few studies that have been done on adult film's impact on women, and almost zero studies that have been done on erotic literature's impact on women. This is one of the most criminally understudied areas in human existence. Something I hear all the time is that romance novels increase the reader's empathy. I doubt it's that simple, but let's say it is. Women are empathetic by default. That is not something that romance literature gives women. It heightens it.
Oh, this I take issue with. Women are not empathetic by default, and I think the clearest indicator of that is the Lego study. You familiar with the Lego study, Aiden?
That's very broad. You have to give me more details.
Okay, Lego wanted to figure out why they can't sell
is it the
Lego
name of the
to
author?
girls. No, Lego, in the little building blocks that you put
Lego.
stuff together.
I'm sorry. Jeez.
Laos,
No,
Lego.
No, I'm so sorry, Wisp. Like, yeah, your accent hit me wrong there.
What?
Yeah, okay.
Lego is an accent-free word.
No, I thought you said legal, as in pertaining to the legal process.
I thought you
as
said
in law.
a city like
I'm
Laos.
sorry. I'm
some
sorry.
part of the world. Like, what are we talking
What
about?
happened? I think maybe I need to see a dentist and fix some
We've gone
things.
a bit Tower of Babel here. Lego, yes, okay.
Yeah, Lego.
Yes.
Yeah. In which Lego wanted to figure out why they can't sell their stuff to girls. And they tried marketing it in various ways. Like, hey, I have a Barbie house out of Lego. It's pink now, and it just didn't work. What they learned was, when the boys play with the Lego, they build stuff. They use their creativity, and when they have the characters, they have stories about the characters. And when they play with Lego Batman, they play Lego Batman. Batman is Batman, and I want to know all about Batman. And when the girls get the Lego Batman set, the girls, they don't play Lego Batman. They take Batman and go shopping with him and dress him up.
Yeah, which is
because
fine.
they project themselves onto Batman. They don't care about Batman, which means they're not empathetic. They're just projecting. They're just still in this narcissistic phase.
I'm not sure
if you want to market to them, you need to appeal to that.
Yeah, obviously there's a difference there. I don't know if it's necessarily empathy or not, because I think that the girls, who are playing in this manner, are potentially being empathetic, but it's a very different manifestation of empathy from how
I don't think
boys play with.
It's rather the opposite, because if you force Batman into the salon to get a manicure or something, I don't think Batman wants that. If you were empathetic, you'd understand. If you cared about what Batman wants.
I'm not the best person to ask about this because I'm autistic. So
so am I, and I could figure it out.
No, but I'm saying when I played with dolls as a girl, right? It was just I would just play out stories with Ken and Barbie, and then with mostly I just built stuff. I just like building stuff with it. But that's not typical for girls. They want to live out stories, and that part is normal for both sexes. That weird thing of I'm gonna take Batman and make him my own character who goes to the salon or does whatever. Boys do that a little bit as well too, though, I think. But that Lego study was interesting in the different ways that girls and boys play.
It's more character congruent, let's say.
Right, whereas the girls are more creating a whole new mythos, though, for Batman. But is it being non-empathetic? I don't know if it's
or is it just what they like that they push onto others?
Is it not also what boys like, if that's what they're... I don't know. When boys are looking at male figures, right, it's often aspirational.
Well, they're not when the boys play with the castle and with the knights. They don't play Batman with them. They still play knights with them. They don't take the knights to the salon.
Yeah, I don't entirely understand that. Again, I'm not the best. I'm not super well read on this part of the academic literature, but I don't think it's inherently unempathetic. It's just it manifests in a different way of girls kind of projecting an entirely new personality onto Batman. It's different. And I think a problem there is that it is maybe empathetic in its own way, but it is a different form of because men are trying to often, or boys, I should be often trying to recreate the scenarios that they already know, whereas maybe girls are too, but maybe they're also creating a new scenario that's more in her own head, which is a bit unempathetic in that sense. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, it's something to look deeper into, especially for anything.
Yeah.
Maybe that's as if you ever run out of topics for bigger videos, the Lego study might certainly be one of them.
Yeah, I've thought about making a video on it before. Sorry, let's continue.
Okay.
It heightens it, certainly, but as in all emotions, a heightened state of anything is usually very bad. Heightened empathy reduces a
Okay, let's run with that.
person's logical response and cognitive reasoning. It makes it difficult to regulate the emotional response with reason. Heightened states of empathy have been found to contribute to pain, depression, anxiety, emotional over-involvement, burnout, vicarious trauma, and post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, right out of the gate, the fact that romance books heighten empathy.
I think I have a massive disagreement just with the use of terms, but that's
this is
what they do.
This is a way overestimation of stuff too. I've actually read that study she pulled up, which was surprising. But no, it's not. I'm familiar with that study. Those are at extreme levels of this kind of exposure. The average reader is not going to go experience this kind of stuff. It is possible, but this is the case with any kind of extensive, obsessive level of exposure to any kind of media. So the issue is more about the obsessiveness of the behavior more than it is about the behavior in and of itself. All things, be in their own place, be temperate with this stuff. It's the overindulgence. The extremity of it. That's the problem. Well, with anything.
She was saying heightened states, and I'm thinking, okay, what peak mental states like gamma brain waves and other things we could describe and measure. It's like, well, those are fine if you're focused and training and this and that. So when she said emotion, I was like, all right, fair. You're talking about emotion. You can go that far.
She may not, I'm guessing, doesn't have a lot of experience with neuropsych research and how something being heightened or there being increased arousal, not a negative thing. It's only when you get to those high levels, again, when you start to literally burn out the dopamine receptor, which can happen.
Cortisol goes way too high. You're going to burn yourself out. She's just saying things because she believes in them. Like, okay, fine, you're wrong.
Can that, if that burns out, can that regenerate after all?
Yes. Yeah, it will, like many parts of your body, but your brain in particular is extremely resilient. So if you just cut it back for a while, it will, as far as I know, I've not seen super longitudinal research on this, but it will return to normalcy after a while. Because if you stop, seeking out this thing constantly and overloading because you're demanding your brain to produce this hormone to a degree that it just can't. It can't anymore because there's nothing left. So, but if you stop, then you can go back to relatively normal dopamine production.
So there is hope for the Kumas.
Oh, there absolutely is. You just lay off it, do No Nut November or whatever, and probably stick to it a little bit. But you will mostly be happier as well because you will be able to experience the chemical reward more if you make it more less tax your brain by constantly trying to force it.
Wonderful.
That despite the intentions of the to be aroused or not, which is an unsettling thought all by itself. So imagine you're a young woman and you're reading a steamy romance in which the main female character is being mistreated in some way by the male character, and this female character feels arousal at this mistreatment. Written well, this arousal on the part of the female character will trigger empathetic arousal in the female reader.
It doesn't have to be written well, but I don't know why she's saying that. As if
it helps when it's written well.
No, but as if saying, sadomasochism is only good if it's written well. It's like, thanks, I get, you want to understand clearly what's happening, but average readers can understand what's happening by reading between the lines, even if the grammar sucks. So this is
this is also not aligning with the research. Again, I'm predominantly a media psychologist, and this is not aligning with us. This need to empathize. I've not seen. I mean, being able to empathize with a character is always going to increase probably your enjoyment or liking of a story to a certain degree, because you can start to see them as a person, and that heightens the stakes essentially for you because you care about them now. But I also disagree with the women are more empathetically tied into narratives. This stuff, there might be research on it, but I'm not familiar with it. Again, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I've not come across it in 15 years of media psych background.
This is where my issue with the choice of words comes from. To empathize, I understand as there's a separation between me and the character, the target of the empathy. The same way that a hunter needs to empathize with his prey because he needs to understand how is the prey gonna react. How can I get the prey? How can I steer it into a certain direction? For example, to my co-hunter.
I think it's a problem with
practical use. The other is here.
Her use of terms is maybe a bit mixed up, I think, is the problem.
Yeah. Because here, especially if it's about the main character, the element of projection comes better in, so that the reader associates what is happening to the main character to him or herself, and that is mostly why the erotica is read in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that empathy plays a role at all here.
Maybe. I just don't. I think the biggest problem was with her framing of this and some of the use of terms. And once you've mixed in also psych research, I'm going to anticipate a maintenance of the same level of stringency on technical meaning. But she seems to be mixing in technical terms with colloquialisms. And that is a bit of a problem. But I think that's what's happening, is mixing in definitions from psych literature with maybe more colloquial meanings of these terms.
Could be her writing group is very specific using these words anyway, and this is what she thinks of, like empathetic arousal. I'm like, oh, so you feel empathy. Okay, great.
Well, assume that I'm gonna take a little leap here. Assume that every narcissist believes to be competent of everything, especially being the most empathetic person on the planet.
Yeah.
And narcissists have zero empathy at all. So if you have emotionally immature women who are porn addicts, they will, of course, also claim to be super empathetic when in reality they have no empathy at all, but use the word all the time. And maybe this is why the use of the word empathy is so misused in general, because we have a little demographic that insists that women are more empathetic than anyone else, and somehow we believe this because we've been told this for, I don't know, a century or 5.
And empathy is depicted as a universal good. Always more empathy equals always more good, without understanding that is not the case. Maximal and empathy for others can be very harmful.
Which I think is rather pity, which is the immature, inbred cousin of empathy.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure, though. We'd have to keep listening. I think that it is just a confusion of clinical, more psychiatric terms or psychological terms with colloquialisms, though.
I hope so, because it is a little, like, we're kind of splitting hairs here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Young, inexperienced woman will then be troubled trying to understand why she's feeling aroused by what is borderline abusive behavior.
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
No. I agree.
Yeah, and that's just relevant to understand why the grape fetish is so prevalent. And
women want masculine men who take control. Like,
exactly.
And it isn't. Our word is one manifestation of it, but it's as simple as this. I know men hate this, and I understand it completely. You ask, where do you want to go to dinner? And she says, well, I don't know. What she says when she says she doesn't know or whatever is you pick. I want you to pick. I want you to be a man and choose where to go to dinner. That whole little shit test that women pull, as it's often called, a shit test or whatever. They just want the man and I'm guilty of it too. I don't know. It's like built into our DNA or whatever, so you can't escape it to some extent. Is women want men to take action and charge, and in a romance setting, sometimes that manifests. Very often, that manifests as R word, right? But again, it's always with a guy that she already likes. It's always with a guy that we've already established that the character and therefore the reader also likes. If it's a disgusting man who you don't like, then it's not going to be featured positively, obviously, in these kinds of stories. So it's wish fulfillment. It's a man being masculine and aggressive in a way that would otherwise be deemed negative if she wasn't into it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't much matter where you go to eat. It matters that you make the decision.
Oh yeah, I agree. Even
Yeah.
with
Yes, we will go there. I'm not telling you where, but I will decide, and you will like it. Is that clear?
wow.
Unironically, what she would like the most, I almost just be like, no, I know a great place. You will like it. That's the best.
No, shut up. We're going there.
Maybe don't be that aggro, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. Some women.
How allergic and how Jewish are you? We'll find out, but you're gonna like it. What? We can't have pork hocks? No beer? Are you okay? Forget it.
The story will continue in this ever after. The moment of joy at the end is the emotional climax that is essential for a woman to fully enjoy an erotic romance.
What? I'm gonna call no on that one.
I do think that it's far more likely for women's stuff to have a romantic conclusion, marriage, children, that kind of stuff. But the sexual part is clearly also relevant.
Yeah, if we're talking about a Shakespearean rom-com, then yes, marriage is the outcome. It has to happen. But we're talking about a modern story with some sex for ladies. No, you don't need to have they lived happily ever after. In fact, tragedy is fine in a lot of these stories. So, or irony is more than fine. So no, I don't think that's essential for them to enjoy an erotic romance.
Yeah. I think they want the maybe the option of a happily ever after, but it doesn't have to actually happen.
Implications.
It's the
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And in fact, maybe the denied of the implication and then having it been denied would be something that's desirable as well. I don't think it has to be fairy tale in that sense, though. No,
the epilogue does not have to be spelled out either, so long as the direction was sort of in that. Like, oh, they got together. Good enough for me. Okay.
Right.
No, I'm not saying women are super weak or something like that, but I think we can all agree that strong emotions are exhausting no matter who you are, and women are more prone to feel emotions strongly. An empathetic response.
That's no. The data don't bear that out at all.
Yeah.
You can't start citing studies and then go off into speculative land.
Women are very emotional. It's like, okay.
Well,
yeah.
That's mainly, I would say that's mainly tied to the hormonal levels.
Well, women have very volatile emotions, but men feel emotions exactly as strongly as women do. That's a total
yes. And I think through
thing.
the whatever the current hormonal cocktail is, which is also more fluctuating in women.
Yes.
You are more emotionally prone, emotionally open, and therefore the emotions show more on the surface. And that is what we perceive as women being more emotional, which is also what leads to women being more irrational.
Yeah, it depends entirely on which phase of the cycle that the woman is in, of her personal cycle, which is different for every woman. Yeah. So, for example, when women are in the luteal phase, which is when the body is in simulated pregnancy, which is after ovulation but before menstruation, right? Then you find women suddenly have an increased attraction towards men who are more feminized in their features, for example. And it's a reversal of the kind of men that women are attracted to when they are ovulating, which are more masculine in their features. So by every aspect of women's personality, in some senses, when it comes to sexual attraction, specifically, changes literally day by day. So, that is a whole element that is different and unique in women. Men have hormonal fluctuations, changes, but they're not as reliably
not as strong.
trackable.
It's more it's more
a
a specific cycle from morning to evening.
Yeah.
But another point where you see that manifest is in either for medical issues or for with the trannies that actually do go on HRT, not just the ones who say I am the woman now, give me like a prison sentence. They will also have different emotional proneness, I would call it, from their normal state.
I have no idea how HRT works for male to females, if it works in the same way that, for example, women's hormonal birth control works, which is that the first 5-6 days of hormonal birth control are placebo pills. They don't contain any of the active hormonal agents, and that's part of how they work. So I don't know if also HRT, I don't think it does, because it's often like monthly long shots, if that fluctuates inherent.
It's not about the fluctuation. It's just about what your stable levels are.
I don't believe that stuff that I've heard trans people say, where they say that they're feeling like they've got PMS and stuff. That there's nothing within within the chemical and process there that makes any sense.
That's bullshit. I'm not talking about that. But with testosterone blockers, for example, you lose the stoicism. And with the increased estrogen, there's more what would probably fall into neuroticism into it. You're more emotionally open. That is simply a thing.
Yeah, I get a little bit, again, concerned about the use of the term empathy here, though, for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roller coaster designed specifically to their emotional involvement in a story will tend to be more intensive than a man's on average. Add to that the sexual infatuation triggered by the addictive erotic release of the extremely explicit scenes, which also takes a toll on the mind, whether you enjoy these
slow down there.
Scenes or not, especially if you do. I don't really understand why more people aren't aware of how intensely bad these books are for women's minds. I don't really read romance, smutty or otherwise, but I did read quite a few of these books when I was trying to understand the genre better.
Oh, there was a South Korean.
It was a manga.
China. Yeah. I was like, what was that? I don't know that one. But
yeah, I'm not familiar.
But
she's brought it up a couple times. It's been on her. It's I think been her list the whole time, whatever it is.
Huh. Must be popular.
Yeah, I don't agree with her framing towards this at all.
That one sentence was a big load of adjectives. I'm like, that's probably not accurate. Yeah.
Well, there's no data behind this. And again, look, I wouldn't be so intense on the where's your source if she hadn't started it. You know what I mean? Like once you start throwing down sources and you're not just speculating,
I think
she is
just extrapolating. She's extrapolating from her experiences in her private life, as well as with what she knows about the addictive circuitry.
Yeah, I'm just not totally convinced by this argument. I'm not even a little bit convinced.
I'm not saying that she's 100% correct, but I think that's the logic.
We have to go into like estrogens and I don't know, progesterones or something that would be specific, that would not be situational or environmental or behavioral, and say, okay, yeah, women, because of this time of the month, they could be experiencing pain and pleasure a lot more intensely than men. You're like, oh, okay. Do we have any examples? Do we point to a study?
Well, sure. I mean, it's what you have. The big breakdown is whether women are in a pre or post luteal or pre-luteal or post-luteal phase. These are the three elements of it. And without pulling up a study on this, and I've not read any literature related to this in romance interest, but I can tell you what I could extrapolate from it based on the data I do have to mind, which is that the type of man that a woman will be interested in and sexually attracted to can change based on hormonal cycling. Just in 1 month, different man.
I'm basing this on
features.
Supposed moods, which are then based off whatever's in your blood. So hormones affecting, let's say, hunger, satiety related to that, any kind of adrenaline, norepinephrine, whatever. It's just something that would control arousal. And you say, oh, as a result, Therefore, I don't know, she had a big, I don't know, say protein dinner. It was okay. So she's very satisfied, and then she goes off and reads a book or something. Okay, then she's not going to be as aroused. Maybe. Let's figure that out. I want to know something along those lines because we're talking about blood sugar and sensitivity to your environment and what you're reading and what you're thinking. I think that's...
She's putting a bit of magic on women. From what I'm getting out of this, it's a little bit like, oh, women are just more in tune with stuff. And
I don't think
very...
it's the in tune stuff. It's the I think it's the proneness.
Maybe. I just don't like this framing. I particularly don't like it when you contrast it with citing actual academic literature and then going into speculative, I think, kind of stuff with no citation. That just it rubs me the wrong way, that's all. More than anything.
All right, let's keep going.
Read quite a few of these books when I was trying to understand the genre better. And something that really surprised me was how huge of an emotional impact they had on me. Despite the fact that I didn't care about these characters, and despite the fact that they were all mostly happy endings and everything else, I was legitimately depressed during the few weeks when I was reading these books. I was having trouble focusing on my work, I was having trouble sleeping, I was even having trouble eating, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong until it dawned on me that my mind was basically being ripped around a female-specific roller coaster that was designed to trigger the most extreme emotional and chemical reaction in my mind, short of actually doing drugs. Interestingly, the reaction I experienced was the same reaction.
Well, that's what the behavioral addiction and the dopamine rush for the dopamine addiction is about. That's what the Kuma is stuck on.
I wouldn't associate behavioral experiences reading smut to taking cocaine and saying, well, because my brain is operating the same way. That's...
I mean, I think that's an extreme. But I guess you have to look at what this women-oriented stuff specifically is that it's not, it is a sex simulator in some way, but more than anything, it's romance simulators. And it's very specifically, more than that, all this stuff, what it almost always comes down to is like teen romance simulators, even if it's adults. But the way in which the romance is described is always in this, or very frequently, in this hyper, we were made for each other and it's fate, universe, cosmos is spinning in upon itself to make these people come together. And that's the kind of way that people feel. It's a simulation of the feeling of not love. What is it called? Infatuation.
Infatuation.
Right. And so it's putting your brain as the reader in a simulated infatuation with this fictional thing. And yeah, that can probably be disturbing emotionally.
And that would also explain the hard crash, because
right.
Well, you
like
don't
you get
want
from
to
real
be
infatuation.
Yeah, you don't want to be cut off from your infatuation partner.
Yeah, it's like expectations for the next chapter, next book coming out. You can't wait to read it. I hope all your schedule's cleared. I'll take a day off work. I'll go to this book signing or whatever and get the book and read it immediately. Yeah, I understand that, but she's not quite describing it that way.
Well, she might be thinking about solipsistic interojection, which is when you're already like planning out the next parts in your head, and part of the fantasizing about where the story goes or whatever is consuming your mind. I'm trying to fill in the gaps until you finish the end, and then you get to go move on to the next thing because you like that. The same way that infatuation again is extremely, cloud nine. It's a great feeling. It's also traumatic at the same time, right?
It is what blinds you. It is why every little thing about your infatuation partner, you absolutely adore and love. Once the infatuation phase is over, you see clearly again, and some of those things will just annoy you, as they would have before.
Right. It's just the clearing of the mind, but I guess her complaint here, and it probably is realistic, is that it's sort of locking you in the perpetual infatuation stage because it is fake. But I don't necessarily think it's a problem. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, the perpetual infatuation stage is what narcissists and psychopaths can somehow, they have somehow naturally figured out how to keep that up. Normally, I think it's about 6 to 8 weeks at most. But they can drag it out to up to 2 years, and that fries your brain definitely.
Well, there is a reason why infatuation is temporary. You cannot continue to function while being infatuated. Because everything is, up to 11. So I can see how that could cause real disturbances. Yeah.
Or 3 days worth of straight sex. That's also pretty impossible.
That might work too, yeah.
Relax the perineum.
2 minutes. We're going to take a break because, God, this is getting
dense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Talk about when they watch film. Difficulty focusing the lethargy. Women who are addicted to this sexually explicit fiction don't even realize that they're literally addicted to, adult entertainment.
They're literally addicted, not chemically or just addicted in general. They're actually addicted. Okay, fine.
They're literary addicted.
Literary addicted.
Literally addicted, yeah.
Exception, men who are addicted to watching explicit content are viewed as bad. I shouldn't have to tell anyone watching this video how bad that is for the mind. It just happens that all the language surrounding this accepted fact says men's minds, how bad it is for men, how much damage it does to men.
Yeah, just because men have higher concentrations of male hormones, I mean, the effect
No, I don't think that's the issue. This is the same thing that she and Aiden, I think, said that most studies are on men, not on women. And that is also, again, because women are not preferred as test subjects in general because of the
women are the majority of our test subjects. The problem is... I
thought the opposite was the case because of the hormonal cycle.
No. In terms of test subjects, with studies, particularly in the social sciences, you're going to find a vast overrepresentation of women because the majority of our test subjects are university freshmen. So there is a vast overrepresentation of women in social science research in particular. What I think that the lack of the research in the women is about is more, it's partially taboo. It is also that there's more complex hormones, and it's also that they're in that women's cycles complex things, or complicate things. And then also it is that the way that men and women consume pornographic or sexually arousing literature content is a bit different. For men, it is this like maybe quick release, move on to the next thing. With women, it's maybe a bit more focused. I think maybe is, I don't have evidence for that either, but I think it might be for women a little bit more longitudinally focused, long-term emphasis on something than just looking at disposable pornography. But we've also talked about how that's not true either, and how these books are essentially very disposable, and women skip maybe to the juicy part and then drop it. So I'm not even sure if that's true. Just a hypothesis.
All right.
Studies done on the negative impact watching and mental health on their relationships, friendships, professional lives, and on their character. But basically 0 such studies have been done on women. Part of this is because most researchers won't acknowledge that women's addiction to erotic fiction is in any way comparable to a man's addiction to filmed erotic media. Part of it is because there's so much feminist armor packed around women's erotica that even if a woman were to watch the hub 10 hours a day, she would still somehow be protected by the fact that she's like empowering herself or, I don't know, exploring her sexuality. For social political reasons, most people won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. When it comes to men, this kind of content is known to have an enormous negative impact on their daily lives. Therefore, there are countless resources out there to help men kick that habit and restore sanity to their lives. There's also a lot of shame among men. Men will mock other men for their addiction to this stuff. But for women...
Okay, so she's implying there are some negative ramifications for women reading this stuff, and it's not as intense as it is for men watching this stuff. I think that's what's going on. So because we have no studies,
that it is as dangerous for them.
But because there are no studies, we can't say, or she says there aren't to measurable to say, okay, well, yeah, this is a bad thing, but we don't know.
She's actually pointing out a very real problem, which is that academia actually is largely women at this point, particularly in the social sciences, and women. A lot of the women researchers probably also read and engage in this stuff. And so they don't want to consider that it could have a negative effect on them. And so they're not researching it. That is absolutely true.
Interesting.
Academia is overwhelmingly operated by women at this point. That's not speculative or anything. You can go look at the number of PhDs that are given out every year by sex breakdown. And particularly the social sciences are overwhelmingly dominated by women. And are women going to be more interested in studying why are all of the men around me so annoying, or instead looking inside and going, what am I maybe doing wrong? That in turn, turning around and going, what are the girlies doing wrong? That's much more difficult to come to. And also, it's not, maybe soon, but for the last 15, 20 years, it's not been acceptable within publication to say women can do anything wrong, essentially. Or that could be anything that women enjoy that could be also harmful to them. Because academia is so operated by women. She's pointing out a very real problem in literature, and she is right that this stuff has not been conducted. At least I've never come across it either. And I read studies every single day. So
what you have just described is only indirectly that academia has a women problem. What you have described is that academia has first and foremost an emotional immaturity problem, a narcissism problem, a cluster B problem, which is purported, if that is the right verb, by women.
Well, looking into something that you do that might be harmful, like it's gonna, people aren't going to want to do that because it means they have to accept a possible flaw in themselves. It causes psychological damage and pain to admit to that kind of stuff.
They can't. If
they
can.
They can. Men are better at it, largely speaking, because again, you look at someone like Dolph-Simon, who I keep bringing up, guy who studied pornography, and for decades has been looked at as this gooner freak for studying pornography. And if you look at some of his research, I can understand why. He attached apparati to men and showed them pornography, just to be clear, quite frequently. However, he was trying to understand a phenomenon, and that has given him that sort of label. This guy's my academic great-grandfather, by the way. Like, in terms of my academic lineage, he was my advisor's advisor. So I know this guy's work really well. I think it's not the same case though when women do this stuff, the same kind of literature. When men focus on it, it's that implication of it's gross and it's grody. But when women do it, it's seen as like elevated and feminine and beautiful or
angelic.
Something. Yes, it's girly. It's not harmful. And she's right about that completely. Actually, I think it doesn't get studied as a result, though.
Well, I'd like to pause it right there. We can continue later this week. We're going to get LitDev on as well. I think he's interested in coming in and talking about literature, hopefully within the context of whatever this young lady is talking about, because it seems to be like she's going into her own realm, and we're like trying to follow her. It's being a little difficult for us to follow, at least for me. So
yeah.
Plus, it's really warm in this room, and I'm having trouble breathing. And
it's hot here too.
Water or something.
It's nearly 1 a.m. here in the UK, and it's still.
Dear. Let's get you guys to bed. Thank you so much for coming on and rambling on about all this wonderful literary psych stuff. It's been a while since we've actually had an opportunity to talk about this stuff. It's usually a bunch of fangirls whining about men and their anime, and you're like, oh God, maybe it's not for you, honey. But now that we actually have a writer on board and listening to her, it's different. She's got this is an odd case of, I kind of like her, but she's saying some stuff that doesn't sound right. And I wish we got some more context for where she's coming from, because I'm sure she's done some studies herself to talk this way. So anyway, thanks, Whisp, for the recommendation. We're going to plan this out hopefully soon, because Monday is Anime Day. So I don't know if we're going to do that as well tomorrow, but we'll find out.
Depends on LitDev and Aiden then.
Depends on your schedules, exactly. So we'll figure that out for later. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we will talk to you later. Have yourself a great evening or a good morning, and take it easy. Good night.
Good night.
Yes.